Ives, Amy Jacobson, John Anthony, and many more. Tickets are on sale now at freedomsummitchicago.com. That's freedomsummitchicago.com. Sponsored in part by Opum Tax Advocates and attorney Stephen Leahy.
It's August 25th, and this is your Fox Daily Snapshot. Today is National Kiss and Makeup Day. Fights happen, we're all human, but we need to forgive and forget or say sorry and then make up. On this day in 2006, Hyperion, the world's tallest living tree, a redwood standing 379.1 feet, is discovered in the remote area of Redwood National and State Parks in California by naturalists Chris Atkins and Michael Taylor. It took 12 years, covering 4 billion miles, and Voyager 2 flies over cloud tops of Neptune and its moon Triton, sending back photographs of swamps in 1989. The Great Moon Hoax is published in the New York Sun in 1835, announcing the supposed discovery of life on the moon. Born on this day in 1968, celebrity chef Rachel Ray, teaching us how to cook.
So I have 2 4-pound chickens here. That'll feed 6 to 8 people.
I'm CJ Papa. That's your Fox Daily Snapshot.
For over 40 years, the Heartland Institute has stood for the ideas that built this country. Free markets, limited government, and individual freedom. Now you're invited to celebrate that legacy in person. Join Heartland on Thursday, September 3rd for their 42nd anniversary benefit dinner at the historic Palmer House Hilton in downtown Chicago, one of the city's most iconic addresses for over 150 years. This year's keynote speaker is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who has led Florida through 2 terms of record economic growth, making it one of the fastest growing states in the nation. The evening kicks off with a reception at 5, dinner at 6, an evening of great company, great conversation, and a shared belief in the principles that made America exceptional. Seats are limited, and they will go fast. Reserve yours today at benefit.heartland.org. That's benefit.heartland.org. The Heartland Institute's 42nd anniversary benefit dinner, September 3rd, Palmer House Hilton, Chicago. Don't just believe in freedom, celebrate it.
Hi, I'm Dr. Huber with Virago, the immune enhancement cocktail. Did you know it has 23 natural ingredients in it that work together synergistically? We have nutraceuticals like quercetin, luteolin, fisetin, and lactoferrin. Each of them has such great properties in themselves. Together, they synergistically create a really powerful super immune boost. Not only that, Virago includes specialized mitochondrial energy factors like R-alpha-lipoic acid, CoQ10, and resveratrol to give your cells the energy they need to power your immune system. The ultimate immune boost starts with Virago. Discover Virago today. Join me Friday, August 28th at Sean Fest and hear me interviewed by the great Sean Thompson, a true patriot.
Order your bottle of Virago today. Visit myvirago.com. Use the coupon code IMMUNE to save 30%. Maha and Virago, making America healthy again.
Here's the deal. The government is over $38 trillion in debt, which means the IRS isn't slowing down. And the tax code is complex and unforgiving. So it's not surprising if you're one of the millions of Americans that owe back taxes to the IRS. Unfortunately, they're the world's most powerful collection agency, with the ability to garnish your wages, seize your bank accounts, and even take your home or business. But don't be stressed or worried any longer. We're Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution firm. We have resolved over $3 billion in tax debt for our clients. Our award-winning professionals deal with the IRS every single day, protecting our clients and preparing them for the best possible resolution. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust, give Optima a call today.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Signature, a division of Esquire Bank, offers Chicago businesses relationship-first banking. Signature knows your name and your story because personalized banking still matters. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature is where I do my business banking.
Hi, I'm Tony Patrick, CEO of Total Wall and a client of Signature. We produce high-performance materials used in exterior insulating finish systems and other stucco applications. Every growing business needs a strong team behind it. Over the years, Signature has been more than a financial partner. They've shared their knowledge, offered guidance, and connected us with trusted professionals who help strengthen our business. They're a valuable extension of our team and a true partner. That's why I value my relationship with Signature.
Signature helps local businesses succeed. Want to learn how Signature can help turn your business vision into reality? Call Signature, a division of Esquire Bank, at 773-467-5600 or visit signature.esquirebank.com. Esquire Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Have you been watching gold and silver lately? Hard to ignore. Back in January of 2025, silver was under $30 an ounce, and now it's more than doubled. Again. Not bad, right? Some experts say this bull market is just getting started. Others say it's a good time to take some money off the table. Either way, whether you're buying or selling, Fox Valley Coins in Naperville is the place to go. They stock large quantities of all the major bullion coins and bars. And here's what sets them apart. Unlike places that only pay melt value, Fox Valley Coins pays more for high-grade coins and scarcer dates. That's real money left in your pocket. They also buy scrap sterling flatware, jewelry, silver-plated items, and old proof sets. And they specialize in U.S. and foreign collector and investment coins and currency, both buying and selling. Fox Valley Coins, one light north of I-88 on Route 59 at Ferry Road in Naperville. Family owned with integrity since 1981.
The IRS finally caught up with Louie.
I hadn't paid my taxes in 8 years. I owe the IRS a lot of money.
Louie was in deep trouble.
We're going to take your house, put a lien on your bank account, garnish your pay. They don't care. They're going to take your paycheck.
Louie found out about Optima Tax Relief, the leading tax resolution firm. A-plus rated by the Better Business Bureau, they've resolved over $3 billion for their clients.
Optima Tax, they helped me. They calmed me down. They made me feel comfortable, and I trust them.
Louie has a lot to be thankful for.
I don't owe the IRS anymore, and I'm able to live a comfortable life, a lot better life. It was because of Optima Tax.
For tax help you can trust, call Optima now for a free consultation. Take it from Louie.
If you owe the IRS, don't go it alone. Give Optima Tax a call. They can help you.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Foundations of Freedom. A look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
Near the end of the Revolutionary War, George Washington received a letter from one of his own officers. Colonel Louis Nicola suggested that America might be better served by a monarchy, with Washington himself as king. Washington firmly rejected the idea. He had spent years leading Americans in a fight for independence from a monarchy. He would not see that victory end with America creating a king of its own. He understood that the cause of the revolution was greater than any one man. His example reminds us that power can be offered, earned, or taken. But character determines whether we use it for ourselves or remain faithful to something greater.
Your local State Farm agent Anthony DeGrotto combines good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates. You can combine your home, auto, and life insurance to not only save you money, but give you the peace of mind you've been looking for. Anthony DeGrotto is your go-to agent in Chicagoland. He and his team will work for you to provide the best service you expect at the price you want. Combine your home, auto, and life insurance today. Anthony DeGrotto will help you mix and match things perfectly. His State Farm office is a top pick 2024 Daily Herald Reader's Choice Award winner. He's a proud supporter of Tunnel to Towers and like-minded as you. His State Farm agency is currently looking to add members at their Roselle office. Call Anthony at 847-895-1500 today or visit DeGrottoSF.com. That's DeGrottoSF.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to State Farm underwriting requirements.
MyPillow is celebrating our country's 250th anniversary with savings up to 50% off their made-in-the-USA products. For example, get the queen-size premium MyPillow for $18.98 and the king-size for just $1 more. Get body pillows with a free pillowcase for only $39.98. Get the MyPillow mattress topper for as low as $99.99 and $80 off the MyCross, all made right here in the USA. But there is so much more. In fact, they have over 200 products. Go to MyPillow.com and use promo code Chicago or call 800-489-0201 to check out all of the great products they are offering. Get everything from MyPillow blankets, sleepwear, kitchen towels, mattresses, duvets, pet beds, comforters, couch pillows, bathrobes, and so much more. Go to MyPillow.com or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code Chicago to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products.
Fight or flight? In Illinois, you've got both options. You can stay and fight, engage in local races, work to change things. Or you can vote with your feet. At leavingil.com, we help you build a smart exit plan so you know where to go, when to go, and how to do it right. Take our quick exit readiness assessment. Go to leavingil.com. That's leavingil.com. Or call 224-800-6979.
The following contains a celebrity impersonation.
Mr. President, we're seeing reporting that air conditioning systems are failing as temperatures rise. What is your response?
I said, don't wait. People wait until the last second, then suddenly it's hot and nothing works. I understand this stuff probably better than anybody.
Mr. President, why hasn't the White House issued any guidance?
I gave perfect guidance. Call Air Right Heating and Cooling. That's the guidance. If people followed it, we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Sir, but homeowners have so many HVAC options.
They're not like Air Right. You've got some bad installers out there, some real bad hombres. I wouldn't let them near the White House. It would be a complete disaster.
Mr. President, there are reports of significant rebates on new systems. Can you confirm?
I've heard about them. A lot of people talking about them. If you miss out, you'd have to be really not so smart. Tremendous savings, let me tell you.
Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling at AIR-RITE.com. Air Right, doing it right since 1959.
What if the music stopped? If the familiar voices were silenced? If there were no breaking news updates? What if your companion and connection to your community came with a monthly fee? Don't worry, we're free local radio with you wherever you go, celebrating 100 years and looking forward to the next 100. We are broadcasters. Text radio to 52886 and let Congress know you depend on your local TV and radio stations. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
This is Ed Morrissey of HotAir.com for Town Hall. Freedom stood up for reality and the crowd went nuts. Enes Kanter Freedom attended a WNBA game with a t-shirt that defined a woman as an adult human female. The shirt provoked a profane response from Chicago Sky players, leading the league to eject Freedom from the arena, in every possible sense. When was the last time anyone saw a player in the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL lose their minds and their focus over a t-shirt in the stands? This is the second time in a week for the WNBA in which a team either threatened to expel or outright expelled fans for wearing t-shirts that only express support for biology as the definition of women. This isn't a sports league, it's a struggle session with cardio. It is a cult of progressivism and microcosm where dissent has to be silenced and truth banished. It may be a clown show at the WNBA, but writ large, it really is a danger to freedom, not just Enes Kanter freedom. I'm Ed Morrissey.
The TV tide is turning, and millions of Americans are tuning to Salem News Channel. For breaking news, common sense analysis, and the conservative voices leading the conversation, SNC delivers the stories that matter most. Watch Scott Jennings, Larry Elder, Mike Gallagher, and many others tackling the issues facing our nation. Stream free on Pluto TV, Samsung TV, the Roku channel, and more. Salem News Channel, the news you want, the perspective you trust.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will bring partly sunny skies and pleasant conditions with a high of 80. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 66. Tomorrow, there will be times of clouds and sun with a chance of a thunderstorm in spots from late morning onwards. It'll be humid with gusty winds possible with any downpour, and the high will reach 83. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
Now, from the Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So hockey sticks and Labatt's may be a little bit more expensive, but the market sort of shrugged off this quote-unquote trade war, trade impasse between Canada and the U.S. The war of words, however, continued, in part because it appears that Canadian PM Mark Carney is being less than forthright about how things went down. I would like a little bit more transparency. I think the Trump administration is providing a good deal of detail, but I'd like them just to put out, look, here was the agreement that we had, sort of an agreement in principle that the Canadians walked away from in the 11th hour, sort of the implication being that they were negotiating after the fact of said agreement that would have provided more of an open market to America for Canada than any other country in the world. That was the claim that's made. Jameson Greer, the U.S. Trade Rep, gave a extended interview to CNBC yesterday. And CNBC, Kiernan and Andrew Ross Sorkin, I was surprised they really completely failed to bring up the China issue, which actually J.D. Vance addressed in Maine. I'll get to momentarily. But first, Jameson Greer, just basically on the last-minute dealings of the Canadians. We have an agreement in principle, and then they walk away. Here's some detail on that.
The Canadians, over a year ago, they prohibited the sale of American wine and spirits in their stores. They put limits on how many autos could go into Canada. And even before that, they restricted the sale of U.S. dairy into Canada. So lots of new and long-standing issues with Canada. After about a year of asking them to eliminate these, they said no. So we proposed some very tailored tariffs covering about 5% of what they send us. So pretty low amount in the grand scheme of things to have our own tariffs on those to counter out that retaliation. The Canadians came to us about a month ago. They said we'd like to negotiate. We didn't ask for it, but we said, okay, we're happy to move forward in good faith, and we did, and they did. We progressed to a point Tuesday night where we had enough agreement among the parties to announce that we had found the way to a deal. Then we set about to finalize it. And then in the last hours, I think there were things that the Canadians just, they wanted more. We offered them the best access to the United States of any country in the world. Obviously, there's always going to be tariffs, and there's going to be that protection for American workers and companies. That's the president's trade policy. That hasn't changed. But we sought to accommodate the Canadians by giving them, by cutting tariffs in half on steel, on aluminum, and extensively reducing them on autos and even on things like softwood lumber, accommodating some element of that. Things that are sensitive for the Canadians. They wanted more. I don't know if it was political for them. It certainly doesn't make economic sense, but perhaps for political reasons. They have some by-elections coming up. I don't know, but they came in and they wanted more, and we weren't prepared to do that.
And Mark Carney raised issues, too, completely ancillary and sort of on their face silly. Difficult to believe that this would be the source of the impasse. But he suggested in Quebec that part of the issue was allowing things to be labeled in French. That was one of the sticking points. And because he's, such a jingoist, he was unwilling to concede that point because he's so proud of the French-Canadian heritage and Quebec and so forth. So he's going to defend them to the hilt against those ugly Americans who demand everything be in English. Well, Jameson Greer said that's completely untrue. By the way, I speak French.
No, I mean that was a funny fake story, and I don't think that. I mean that I speak French too. My kids speak French. One of my kids was born in Paris, so I like the Québécois, and I like that they speak French. What we don't like is a situation where Canada, the federal government, forces American tech companies to take their earnings and give a percentage to their competitors in Canada. But I understand why the Québécois want to have French language content and all of that, and we think that's a really valuable thing, and we encourage countries to really put their own country first and put their national identity first. That's actually quite consistent with
so what is
America
that? So
first.
What is that about then, Ambassador? There was some reference to the idea that we wanted some of it to be either in English or that English had to be first or something like that. True? Not true?
That is not true. I can tell you that's not true. I think that's just, I don't know what that is about.
Yeah. So Carney walked away from the elimination of the 10% tariff on softwood lumber, the reduction by 50%, the tariffs on steel and aluminum. along with a massive reduction of the tariffs on auto parts and vehicles assembled in Canada to allegedly protect, this isn't even true, production levels of French language TV and movies that are imposed on U.S.-based streaming services. But as you just heard from Jamieson Greer, that's not even true. So it seems to me that there's probably two things going on, one of which I mentioned yesterday, and the other I did not. The thing I mentioned yesterday is the alignment with China and the Chinese Communist Party. And associated with that, Mark Carney being a globalist and frankly anti-West and anti-American and certainly anti the dollar as the world's reserve currency, which perhaps drives him more solemnly into the arms of the Chinese communists. So that's one of the things going on. And he didn't want to be dictated to. This is when he invoked Canadian sovereignty. Didn't want to be dictated to about his relationship with China and the trade deals that he has arranged with the Chinese communists. And the other aspect of it is just domestic politics. Chris Whalen, we talked to about on the show yesterday, a little bit about this, sort of got to it, which is, there's just a dislike of Trump and a desire not to do deals with Trump. They're still sore about the 51st state business. And so this is for the domestic political audience. This is to score cheap political points by just demagoguing the ugly Americans, starting with the one in the White House, and he's standing up to the ugly Americans, even if it's to the detriment of Canadian industry. But trade war, as I mentioned, the market shrugged, not much of one, because this represents such a small percentage of even the trade between the U.S. and Canada, not to mention, overall trade by the United States.
This is 5% of imports from Canada. It's 0.06% of our overall consumption in this economy. So there's no possible way it can really affect U.S. well-being, right? I mean, we've been having great prints on inflation the past couple of months, going down in June and staying flat here. Real wages for manufacturing workers going up. So we're on the right trajectory. The fundamentals are good, and I don't think this is going to affect anything. That's why I think the markets are shrugging it off.
J.D. Vance in Maine, as I mentioned, had a couple of points, including this China issue that it was really a failure by CNBC to not bring up and get Jamieson Greer to comment, since he's the lead negotiator, along with Luskin, but he's really riding point. But J.D. Vance on the Canadians.
That has underinvested in its military that quite literally would get invaded by a foreign country were it not for the umbrella of protection provided by the United States of America. And so how does Canada actually respond to that? By treating the people of Maine fairly? No. They apply ridiculous tariffs and other non-tariff duties on Maine products coming into Canada, and they don't expect Maine or anybody else to fight back. We're sick of that. We are actually going to fight back against unfair trade practices, whether it's coming from China or Canada.
And the emphasis on whether it's coming from China through Canada.
Be respectful of the process. But we know that Canada allows itself to be used as a backdoor for Chinese goods. They treat Chinese goods more fairly than they do the goods that come from the people of Maine. It's insanity. And what we've said to Canada is stop it. Apply a basic principle of fairness to the trade that you're doing between North Dakota and Canada, between Maine and Canada. And what happened at the very end is they came in with a bunch of unreasonable last-minute demands. I frankly thought we had a deal. I think that we should have a deal, but I think that we need to send a message loud and clear to the Prime Minister of Canada. Stop taking advantage of the people of Maine. Stop taking advantage of America. It's over. We expect fairness in our trade policy.
You know what? And even for a free trader like myself, the specter of the Chinese communists and the disingenuousness of Mark Carney, I'm good on the Trump administration here, despite the hyperventilating they're receiving from the Wall Street Journal editorial board. All right, let's check the headlines with Mike Scott.
5:33 in Chicago. Another day of clear skies and moderate temperatures. 62 right now. Nurses at St. Mary of Nazareth Hospital in Chicago are prepared for a one-day strike to protest the administration's illegal firing of 6 nurses. Meantime, a man was killed in an armed robbery in the Brighton Park neighborhood early this morning. Chicago police say a suspect or suspects entered a business with handguns, demanded money from the register. While running from the scene with the cash, the suspect fired shots at a 36-year-old man, hitting him several times. Now, that man was pronounced dead at the scene. The incident took place in the 3400 block of South California Avenue. Governor Mike Braun is calling for the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission to investigate NIPSCO. Tens of thousands across northwest Indiana early this week remained without power. Governor Braun wants the IURC to review preparedness of NIPSCO and whether the company maintained vegetation and trees to protect its infrastructure. He also wants the commission to look into whether the state funding for infrastructure improvements was actually spent as promised. Yesterday in Gary, hundreds showed up for an impromptu cookout where relief supplies were handed out.
We thought we were forgotten about, and it's taken them so long to help us. NIPSCO has not kept their promise.
In NIPSCO's defense, some crews were shot at in Gary as they assessed storm damage and began to restore power. As of this morning, nearly 4,000 residents remain in the dark. A high-profile Chicago priest is being reinstated after facing sex abuse allegations. Father Michael Pfleger was reinstated to his position as priest at St. Sabina Church on the south side. An investigation by the Archdiocese concluded he was not guilty of the allegation. State and local Democrat politicians in Illinois reacting negatively to a Supreme Court ruling on mail-in voting. The ruling lifts the block from a lower court on some provisions of President Trump's executive order targeting mail-in voting while the case works its way through the courts. Governor Pritzker called the decision, quote, deeply troubling, end quote, accusing the president of trying to put fear in Americans about the security of elections. The Illinois Department of Natural Resources is seeking more information to help identify a boat linked to a deadly crash last month on the Fox River near McHenry. Officials say the boat was recorded on video shortly before a pontoon boat crashed into another boat at a dock south of the McHenry Dam back on July 25th. Investigators now believe people on that boat could have information related to the case involving Richard Stevenson, who faces charges in that crash that killed Magdalena Jablonska. Health officials are confirming there's a case of the measles in Kane County. It involves a Kane County resident, the health department working with providers, schools, and the Department of Public Health to identify and notify those who may have been exposed. Cubs shut down the Diamondbacks 7-0 to open a 3-game road series, while the White Sox were crushed by the Rangers 11-2. The news, a service of Mattress Firm. Still sleeping on that old bed? Mattress Firm sleep experts can help you choose the perfect upgrade. They'll guide you every step of the way. Shop today, save big. It's the best sale of the year. They make sleep easy. Dan Proft and Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. And up next, a check of the AccuWeather forecast in our Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Be a part of the Freedom Chamber Meet and Greet, an evening to connect with pro-American business owners, leaders, and members of our community. Join the Freedom Chamber team and network with local members on Thursday, September 10th from 4:30 to 7 p.m. at Shannon's Deli in Lombard. Enjoy drinks, snacks, conversation, and a special tribute to our friend, Charlie Kirk. Space is limited, so register for free today at 560theanswer.com/chamber.
Each morning, the newsmakers and the newsbreakers shaping today's conversation are heard on the AlphaWealthGroup.com answer line on Chicago's Morning Answer. When you need answers about what's happening in your world, you turn to AM 560 The Answer. And when you need answers about how to prepare for and protect your retirement, you turn to the Alpha Wealth Group, now the proud sponsor of the AM 560 Answer Line, right here on Chicago's source for news, opinion, and insight. AM 560 The Answer.
We're living in a time when anti-Semitism is rising. Hostility toward Israel is growing, and Jewish people are facing hatred and contempt. As Christians, we can't let culture determine our response. We need to let Scripture determine our response. The Bible reminds us that God is faithful, and when God makes a covenant, He keeps it. His promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob still matter today. That's why I'm proud to support the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. For more than 40 years, the fellowship has united Christians and Jews to care for Israel's most vulnerable people, providing food, medicine, shelter, security, and assistance. As believers, we're called to stand against hatred, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and remember that we're part of one redemptive story, rooted in the faithfulness of God. As Esther 4:14 reminds us, we have come to this moment for such a time as this. Discover how you can get involved with the fellowship at standwithifcj.org. That's standwithifcj.org.
My name is Whitney Allen, and I'm a widow. My husband, Ryan, died. We never thought we'd ever have to use life insurance, but the unexpected happened. With Ethos, signing up was fast and 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. No medical exams, and you can get up to $3 million worth of coverage. I'm grateful we were prepared.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
MyPillow is celebrating our country's 250th anniversary with savings up to 50% off their made-in-the-USA products. For example, get the queen-size premium MyPillow for $18.98 and the king-size for just $1 more. Get body pillows with a free pillowcase for only $39.98. Get the MyPillow mattress topper for as low as $99.99 and $80 off the MyCross, all made right here in the USA. But there is so much more. In fact, they have over 200 products. Go to MyPillow.com and use promo code Chicago or call 800-489-0201 to check out all of the great products they are offering. Get everything from MyPillow blankets, sleepwear, kitchen towels, mattresses, duvets, pet beds, comforters, couch pillows, bathrobes, and so much more. Go to MyPillow.com or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code Chicago to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products.
Hair Volume from New Nordic will make your hair look thick and healthy. Hair Volume is available online at Amazon and NewNordicUSA.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will bring partly sunny skies and pleasant conditions with a high of 80. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 66. Tomorrow, there will be times of clouds and sun with a chance of a thunderstorm in spots from late morning on. It'll be humid with gusty winds potentially accompanying any downpour, and the high will reach 83. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is sponsored by Protecting Your Assets with Steve Shyman. Listen Saturday mornings at 8. Learn more at willsave.com.
Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios.
'Cause they got the beat, the campus beat, the campus beat. Yeah, the campus beat.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Since we all live on a college campus now, that's where American culture is in 2026. I want to continue our discussion of this story of Jason Arday's rise and fall that we've talked about intermittently over the last couple of weeks, including yesterday. Jason Arday, this sociology professor at Cambridge University, who was an academic fraud. Most of his life, a complete fiction, academic fraud and fabulist in terms of his personal biography. And when he was exposed, in part because of a whistleblower named Nathan Confass, who is a doctoral candidate at the University of Ghent in Belgium, now suspended for being a whistleblower. But after he was exposed, he, without admitting the truth of what had been revealed, He resigned his post at Cambridge University and ultimately committed suicide, which is unfortunate, of course. Graham Wood, writing in The Atlantic, Arday's colleagues, his editors, and the people who knew he was a fraud but said nothing have absorbed some ridicule for their role in hiring and publishing him. But to date, I've seen no evidence that they have considered their complicity, let alone repaired the damage to their institutions by explaining their error, or better yet, just resigning. Starting with that Hillary Kremen, who really was key in platforming him and then running around touting him as the greatest sociology on the planet Earth. She's a lecturer in the School of Education at Cambridge, featured in some of these hagiographic videos that were circulating for the last several years. Going back to Graham Wood, and this is important. Those who placed Arday in that situation were cruel and heartless. They may as well have taken a skin and bones Make-A-Wish kid, told him he could fly, and shot him out of a cannon. The journalists were not the ones who stuffed Arday into the cannon and lit the fuse. They were gravity. Arday was hired to teach social science. A terminal irony is that his main contribution to that body of knowledge will be as a case study about a community that elevated a flawed man to a position exalted beyond his ability without knowing or caring that they were actually offering him as a human sacrifice. Ooh. Real good. Real good. 312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com, call and text line. And as I mentioned, and I just mentioned again, Nathan Kofnas, suspended by Ghent University. And in just a fitting Dickensian turn in the story, who suspended him? The university administrator at University of Ghent in Belgium who suspended Kofnas is a trans Green Party politician, Petra de Sutter. Trans Green Party politician who's an administrator at the University of Ghent. I mean, central casting. They are cartoonish caricatures of themselves at the universities. These august bodies of deep thinking and higher education. 312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com, call and text line. As Peter Bargosian, a former academic who got drummed out of the university for crimes against the identitarians back in the heady days, the height of the cancel culture, he commented, if you're black, you should just be able to obtain your credentials through fraud, pathologically lie about your accomplishments, and steal others' intellectual labor, which is what Arday did. Anyone who points out this fraud and should be investigated for racism should have their livelihood threatened and be publicly shamed. And that's now what's happening to Nathan Kofnas, the whistleblower. But it was happening for a while. Even independent of Jason Arday, because before Kofnas was at the University of Ghent, he was at Cambridge, where Jason Arday was. This is from an interview on LBC with a oafish newsreader named Nick Ferrari. A couple of years ago. This is in 2024. And this is relevant because it speaks to the sort of media campus culture that drives our larger culture, or at least has substantial impact. And it also is relevant because this has been brought back to try to discredit Kofnas, the whistleblower here, as a racist. Oh, and by the way, I mean, again, Kofnas put his name on it, and he was the one who was willing to say what everybody knew. I mentioned this the other day. Harvard cognitive scientist Steven Pinker's most recent book, When Everyone Knows That Everyone Knows, this discussion of pluralistic ignorance. Everybody is privately thinking the same thing, but no one dares say it out loud because that's when the shame mafia comes for you. So Cofness was the whistleblower, but only because he said what everybody knows but was unwilling to say except for him. All you had to do was, even if you knew nothing about Jason Arde and you just heard some bullet points of the claims that he was making, 30 marathons in 35 days with, I don't know, the last dozen after he had he had a fracture in his leg or something like this. Not to mention, even done a cursory glance of his supposed scholarship, such as it is in sociology these days. But so going back to this Cofness interview, why is he a racist? Because, again, he said out loud what was contained, what was contained in the court record of the Harvard admissions case that was before the Supreme Court, in which the Supreme Court ultimately held, as you'll recall, that Harvard was illegally discriminating against Asian students to manipulate the composition of its undergraduate student body and get more black kids in, basically. That's the story. So he repeated the results of a study that Harvard did about how the composition of its student body would change if they didn't have racist admissions policies. He repeated that out loud. But Cambridge students, black Cambridge students, took offense to this. It hurt their feelings. So how dare you, Mr. Confess, say things out loud that could hurt people's feelings? This is the nature of the assault on Cofness. And it goes something like this.
What would you say to black students at the University of Cambridge who've expressed their distress over this?
Well, I should comment that statistical generalizations about different populations don't apply to all other populations.
No, I wonder if I can bring you back to the question that I asked, Doctor, is what would you say, and I've heard from one already on the show, to black students at Cambridge who are distressed by this?
Right, so I'm answering the question.
I'll deem if you are, actually, Doctor, so let's go ahead. What would you say to those students?
Well, you're responsible for the questions. I'm responsible for the answers. Yep. You asked me what I would say.
Here we go.
This is what I would say. So statistical generalizations don't necessarily apply across in different countries and different societies. No,
you're not answering the question. I've spoken with a young black female student. You'll listen to me. No, you'll listen to me. Doctor, we do it my way, okay? We're going to do it my way because you're on my show. Doctor, I have heard from a young female black student who has expressed her distress because of this. And she says it's already difficult enough to be a black student at the University of Cambridge, and this only makes her life and those of her friends who are also black tougher. So I wonder if we could get down to the meat of your answer to that. What would you say directly to that young woman?
Okay, well, as I was saying, I'll skip.
Please don't take me on a tour of academe. Just what would you say to that young woman?
So are you... well, I told you what I say, and you interrupted me. But I'll say that if your position is we're not allowed to talk about Harvard's own statistics about their admission, we're not allowed to talk about Harvard's admissions policy because somebody could pluck that statement.
Your
out of
position
context.
is, Doctor, you can knowingly cause offence and distress because of the position you enjoy and the research you can point to. You can knowingly cause distress.
Knowingly cause distress?
Yes.
I mean, people are distressed if you talk about the role of testosterone in sex.
No, I'm not talking about the role.
People...
I don't know why you keep seeking to take me down another path. You're knowingly causing distress with black students on the University of Cambridge, and I'm saying that you feel that that's okay to do that.
What do you mean I'm saying? I never said anything like that.
Well, you've been trying to justify why this is done. I've asked you 3 times what you'd say to that young woman. You've declined to say that.
Why are you asking me why it's justified to talk about Harvard's admissions policies, quoting Harvard's admissions statistics?
Because of the impact that it has.
A very strange question.
Okay. Well, I don't have to answer why I question the questions I asked to you, thank you. I do that because I'm representing the listeners who've all called in to me.
Do you know how insane this is? Harvard did a study that found that if it applied meritocratic standards to its admissions policies, the black student body population on campus would go from 14% to about 0.6%. So blacks are overrepresented by like 20x, 25x, almost 30x on Harvard's campus because of how they were manipulating their admissions policies based on race. That's Harvard's study. He cites it. Somebody gets offended by his citation of Harvard's study, and he has to indulge this Nick Ferrari on BBC. What do you have to say to a girl who says that hurts her feelings to know that those are the results that Harvard generated when they looked at the impact of their own admissions policies and what it would be if you changed the policies to be meritocratic as opposed to, to informed by racial bean counting? What do you have to say to her? What do you have to say to her? I have to say to her, that's just the facts, Jack. What do you mean, what do I have to say to her? And then he goes on to try to slime confidence, which is what everybody's doing right now. Not everybody in academia is doing right now. All those people that are scurrying by the whole our day saga, trying to avoid any self-reflection, much less, of course, accountability for what transpired. So why do people want you off the campus of Cambridge, which they ultimately drove them off that campus? Why is it so difficult for you to get a job in academia on this side of the pond or the other side?
Why do you suppose there's such a level of opposition to your appointment at Cambridge in the first place?
Well, there was opposition. Last year, there was a petition to have me fired based on a peer-reviewed paper.
I'm reading online. You found it difficult to get a post in the United States as well. If that's true, why do you suppose there's such global opposition to you, Doctor?
I mean, there's a certain orthodoxy and political sensitivities.
Oh, you don't say.
Prevail, and
what a revelation!
Question orthodoxy. At all times.
So it never dawns on you that you might possibly be in the wrong, in that you can't get a post in the United States, and when you come to Cambridge, students protest against you. That's all their fault, not yours, Doctor.
All
right, let's boil it down to a simple one.
Carefully.
Okay, should well-educated folk like yourself, which undoubtedly you will be, do you have greater rights than others to exercise freedom of speech?
Well, that's a question of law, and there are certainly principles of, say, journalists that apply to journalists or academics to explore.
No, but I'm asking about you, Doctor. No, my journalist.
Look, that's a question. I can't comment on English law. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, so the interesting thing about the whistleblower here is, Cofness is sort of. First of all, he won't abide the conventions that you're supposed to abide. The whole Steven Pinker, everybody knows that everybody knows. Nobody says it out loud, but he will. But he almost seems like oblivious to these social conventions, but he understands the implications. But he's such a geeky social scientist. He doesn't. He takes at face value the sliming that is being attempted by the presenter. And doesn't want to get outside of his lane because he, has some academic integrity. I mean, it really is such an illustration of the anti-intellectual nature of identitarians. Phil in Maryville, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Yeah, sitting here driving to work getting aggravated in the car the way that interviewer was talking, and I would politely tell that guy, go blank yourself. Don't tell me how to talk, slave master.
Thanks for the call, Phil. Yeah, that could have been a moment. I'd invite you, Mr. Ferrari, to go make love to yourself. That could have been a moment to exit. Richard Hanania on this whole saga and to the point of what the convention that Kafnis violated. Reminds me of something an old professor told me when I was in graduate school. He was a historian who had grown disgusted with the direction in which academia had gone. In his class, we would dig deep into some of the work of prominent political scientists, expose the flaws in their papers and books. That was effective in puncturing the aura that surrounded high-status figures in academia, and we wonder how they got away with producing such drivel. He told us, his professor, that many academics saw their work, quote, like a game, unquote. You don't care that much if someone you know cheats in a board game. Who cares? Why start a conflict? We all got a nice thing going here, and it's better if we all just continue getting along. And that attitude helps to explain the reaction to Jason Arday's fall and the embarrassment that should be reverberating throughout the halls of academia, starting at Cambridge, but is not. Coming up at 6:06, we'll pour over Abdul El-Sharia's interview with Jesse Waters, 6:06, now 6 o'clock at AM 560 WIND Chicago.
Oil markets are reacting this morning. CJ Pup of Fox News. The price for a barrel of oil dropping fast after Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent unleashes a fresh set of penalties on Iran.
The actions of Treasury and other agencies will tighten the noose and block every potential source of revenue that funds the IRGC and the evil Iranian regime.
Fox's Trey Yanks in Tel Aviv.
Among the new sanctions includes an expanded list of secondary sanctions targeting digital assets, technology, gold, aviation, and shipping. In addition, the Treasury Department sanctioned nearly 60 entities, individuals, and vessels in multiple jurisdictions. The actions go after what the department describes as a network of shadow fleet vessels operating across many different countries. Iranian officials threatened retaliation to the economic measures. Another tanker was struck in the Strait of Hormuz with an unknown projectile while transiting the U.S.-approved southern route. The vessel had damage caused to its engine room and was disabled.
Well, Canada will announce retaliatory tariffs against the U.S. today after relations deteriorated sharply Monday. President Trump told Canadian leaders to fall in line or face consequences far worse than existing tariffs. It could be a matter of hours before the jury in Massachusetts begins to deliberate the fate of Lindsay Clancy.
At one point, he also brought up Clancy's Catholic faith, at which point the defense asked for a mistrial, but the judge said no. Clancy faces 3 counts of first-degree murder and the possibility of life in prison without parole. But if the jury finds her criminally not responsible, she'll be committed to a state mental hospital. In the 4 months leading up to the children's deaths, Clancy received 32 prescriptions and 13 psychiatric drugs. Now, there is expected to be one more rebuttal witness from the prosecution.
That is Fox's Nate Foy reporting from Plymouth, Massachusetts this morning. America is listening to Fox News.
Skies are clear. We'll see clouds and sun throughout this day. 62 degrees in the QC Kinetics newsroom. A man was killed this early morning in the Brighton Park neighborhood. Chicago police say a suspect or suspects entered a business with a handgun demanding money from the register. While running from the scene with that cash, a suspect then turned around and fired shots at a 36-year-old man, hitting him several times. That man was pronounced dead at the scene. Governor Mike Braun is calling for the Indiana Regulatory Commission to investigate utility NIPSCO, as tens of thousands remain without power over the weekend after severe storms 2 weeks ago. Governor Braun wants the IURC to review NIPSCO's preparedness and is also calling on the commission to check whether state funding for infrastructure improvements paid by ratepayers was spent as promised. Yesterday in Gary, hundreds showed up to an impromptu cookout where relief supplies were handed out to those still without power.
We thought we were forgotten about, and it's taking them so long to help us. NIPSCO has not kept their promise.
As of this morning, nearly 4,000 residents are still in the dark. State and local Democrat politicians in Illinois are reacting negatively to the Supreme Court ruling on mail-in voting. Governor Pritzker calling the decision deeply troubling. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson released a statement saying the legal order may restrict some mail-in voting and puts federal agencies in the middle of determining who can receive a ballot. A tax court ruling yesterday in Maryland will have a major impact on the digital advertising tax in Illinois. The court found that Maryland's digital advertising gross revenues tax violates the Tax Freedom Act and the Commerce Clause and the Due Process Clause. Andrew Wilford is with the National Taxpayers Union and says federal law does not allow discrimination against digital products.
For example, you can't tax digital advertising and not tax traditional advertising. Unfortunately, that is what Illinois does.
There is a House Bill 5807 set to repeal the digital ad tax this fall. Chicago sports, Cubs shut out the Diamondbacks 7-0, opening a 3-game road set, while the White Sox were crushed by the Rangers 11-2 in their series opener at home. League's Cup quarterfinals, Chicago Fire take on Mexican powerhouse Monterrey in Bridgeview. The news, a service of the Home Builders Association of Northwest Indiana's Fall Parade of Homes, featuring 7 high-end custom homes by 7 premier builders on large country lots in Stonebridge of Valparaiso. Learn more at paradeofhomesnwi.com. A check of traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Scott Jennings isn't standing for it.
Listen to this garbage human, John Ossoff.
He wants to build his ballroom and travel with Natalie on their apparently defenseless flying palace gifted by the Emir of Qatar.
What we are learning from Democratic men right now is that if you're a conservative woman in politics, that you're nothing more than a concubine for some male politician.
The Scott Jennings Show, weekdays at noon, right before Hugh Hewitt at 2 on AM 560. The Answer. Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6745. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS.
Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start.
Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems.
We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau.
You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6745. That's 800-575-6745. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
When it comes to supplements, 2 things matter most. A, that it works, and that you can trust it. Rather than just tell you about Relief Factor, we'll let our audience do that. We hear from people every single day whose lives have changed, and I want you to hear a few of their stories. Doug took Relief Factor for nearly a year before convincing his wife, a special needs teacher, to try it. She had been using assistance just to move through the long hallways at school. Now she's back on her feet every day and never had to leave the job that she loves. I remember when buttoning my shirt was almost impossible, but Relief Factor changed how I'm able to do it and the simple things again. And they make it really easy now for you to find out if you can be the next person that's telling us about Relief Factor and how it gave you your life back. 3 weeks, $17.76. Try it. ReliefFactor.com, 800-4RELIEF. You'll connect with their friendly local team, and they'll do everything they can to help. We hope you soon will be sharing your story with us as well. ReliefFactor.com.
Hi, I'm Ken Mariotti, owner of Woodland Windows and Doors, a third-generation family-owned business since 1969. We know you're bombarded by choices when shopping for new windows or doors, so we're inviting you to experience the Woodland difference. For decades, we have been transforming living spaces with Marvin Windows, a fifth-generation family business. Marvin replacement windows have been known to increase the warmth of your cold rooms by 10 degrees. Think about that, 10 degrees warmer. When you welcome Woodland into your home, you will get a product expert to transform your living spaces, full-time, dedicated professional installers that you can trust in your home, along with the best products like Marvin. These are the reasons we're proud of our 5-star reviews and family legacy. No gimmicks, no pressure, and upfront pricing are why Woodland Windows and Doors is your trusted window and door expert in Chicagoland. Visit woodlandwindows.com to book your free in-home expert consultation. That's woodlandwindows.com, or stop by our showroom at the corner of Lake and Geary in Roselle.
Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
6:09, Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Inbound Kennedy, report of an accident just after Sayre. I-57, report of an accident inbound just before Halstead. Stop and go on the Reagan I-88 right at the southbound tri-state. Cleanup from an earlier semi-fire continues westbound I-80 just after Minooka Road. Traffic, a service of the AM 560 mobile app. Download the app, 560theanswer.com/mobile. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now, check of the morning forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today will bring partly sunny skies and pleasant conditions with a high of 80. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 66. Tomorrow, there will be times of clouds and sun with a chance of a thunderstorm in spots from late morning on. It'll be humid with gusty winds potentially accompanying any downpour, and the high will reach 83. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Papa Nicholas Coffee. Papa Nicholas, best beans, best roast, best coffee. Online at papanicholas.com.
Now, from the Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So tough to get the left to show up for debate with people who disagree with them. So it's always interesting when that occurs, and one wonders, is that genuine, or is there an ulterior motive there? So when Abdul El Sayed, or El Sharia, as I call him, showed up to be interviewed by Jesse Waters, one wonders, what's his play there? Doesn't seem to be much upside for him there, or is there? If you watch the interview, well, get your take on that, how well you think El Sayed held up under questioning by Jesse Waters. Their exchange on ICE.
We have ICE now, and we have far, far more undocumented people. So ICE is clearly not working. It's just shooting like American citizens in the face and the back of the head. So
well,
if you're okay
illegals
with that,
are shooting
then
people in the face
have to agree
too.
to disagree.
Abdul, you got a guy in Michigan.
So are American citizens.
You got a
I
guy.
Just think, look,
let me just say something. Okay,
to get
Abdul,
back to the conversation about the broader issues.
Okay.
Well, you cut me off, Jesse, and you said we're going to have a good conversation. So I'd like to do that. I just want to answer the point. when I travel the state, and I have traveled my state, more people are asking me about how they're going to afford their gas and groceries. They're not asking me about immigration.
Well,
now,
they also don't want to get
molested.
Abdul, you got a guy here from Southeast Asia, molested a kid. ICE just picked him up. You want that guy to stay in Michigan?
I'm glad that guy got picked up, but that's a different thing than saying that INS would not have picked him up. Jesse, you're too smart for this.
It's a bureaucratic game you're playing, and that's a dodge.
You point to him, you say,
he says ICE is shooting Americans in the face and the back of the head, and Jesse Waters says so are illegal immigrants. And then Syed says so are Americans. Huh. I hope Mike Rogers is going to bring more to the game than this, because control of the Senate could turn on that race. We'll see. You know, there's trouble in places like Texas and Ohio. I don't know if you've been paying attention. I know Mike Johnson and John Thune are putting on, and President Trump are putting on a brave face and saying everything's fine, and we've got these red states that Trump carried easily every time he ran. And so, you know, at the end of the day, it shouldn't be a problem. It might be. And it's not just the idea of losing this race for the purpose of control of the Senate, although that's important. It's also to let to see an Islamist like El Said in the United States Senate. I mean, this is much worse than Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib, because they are not as deft with their deceptions. They have no deceptions. They're guileless. They can't help themselves. He has guile. And he casts, I mean, this, and he did this throughout the interview. And it's frankly embarrassing to watch Jesse Waters be completely oblivious to what he's doing, which is shrouding his Islamism in affordability. You know, they don't care about this. They don't care about that. I'm just out there talking to regular people about their, you know, kitchen table issues. It didn't get any better. Guy who essentially said football is a vestige of white supremacy. And this is how that went.
Getting rid of Sharia laws, white supremacy. Can you explain that one?
Do you know what canon law is, Jesse? I assume you're Christian, right?
Yeah, tell me.
All right, so canon law is the name for Christian law. I don't begrudge you your right to practice your faith as you choose. I don't know why the idea that I could practice my faith as I choose is a problem. Nobody is trying to push Sharia law on anyone else, just like I hope nobody is trying to push canon law on anybody else, because we live in an America where you should have the freedom of your religion. So the idea that you have somebody like Tommy Tuberville, right, who, you know, barely was good at coaching football, is out here trying to ban Sharia law when there's less than 1% of the Muslim community in America, as if somehow Muslims are out here trying to push Sharia law, that seems to me to be deliberately targeting the Muslim community because they're different. And I'm just saying that, like, I have no issue with people practicing their faith. In fact, I would never want somebody to push their faith on me, and I would never want to push my faith on somebody else.
Good, because no one wants you to get rid of your religion.
And so the idea,
no one wants that.
So, but when people preemptively go out there and start preemptively passing laws to ban something that's not happening, what you're trying to do is target a very small community because they're different. And this operates. I mean, look, I'm just going to say, there's statistical evidence that the president and the vice president like to target me
scary.
Simply as a function of my faith.
You know, it's like men aren't equal from women.
Like,
it's like physical punishments.
You like to say the word. Look, Jesse, look,
people don't like
to
that
say
in
the
Michigan.
word
I'm just saying,
because it
I don't
seems
think
really,
that's a good
really foreign
position.
and scary. Nobody's pushing it. No, but Jesse, nobody's pushing it. You know what the issue is in America, in Michigan? What? The issue that people are worried about is not that somehow somebody's going to come and push Sharia law on them. The issue in Michigan is people are worried about how they're going to afford their gas.
There it is.
The issue in Michigan is how am I going to see a doctor when I get sick? How am I going to keep my job? You're out here, honestly, you guys love to play this culture war game where you use these words that sound really foreign to avoid actually having to talk about the issues that everyday people like to talk about. Now, look, Mike Rogers is the guy I'm running against for U.S. Senate, and I know you've had him on your show. Maybe he answers questions. I don't know if he does.
I've actually never had him on.
Only, but look, you haven't. So he's ducking your show, too, because he's ducking. Look, can we all agree? Like,
I haven't
Jesse,
invited
you and I
him
are
on.
going to have a debate, right? Can we all agree that Mike Rogers is a beta? Can we all agree with that?
I haven't even had him on.
Dude won't even come on your show because he's afraid of getting grilled.
I will have him on.
What a mess that was. Banning Sharia law is a vestige of white supremacy. Football's a vestige of white supremacy. Everything's a vestige of white supremacy. He also took the position that he's open to a conversation on reparations, because of white supremacy, so on and so forth. Focus there. Full stop. And by the way, Tommy Tuberville won National Coach of the Year 5 times. He doesn't know anything about coaching football. Just as an aside. So that's one thing. The other thing too is his false comparison of canon law to Sharia law. That is a full stop, and the exact conversation that you have to have is Sharia law compatible with Western jurisprudence, with peaceful pluralism, the way that canon law is. You see, the difference, El Said, is canon law, informs the founding principles of this country and is consistent with living in a free, peacefully pluralistic society. And the Sharia law that you promote, that you personally live by, so you say, is not. That's the rub. You know what I mean? And then on transing kids in school, well, just in general.
Again, sex changes for minors. Do you support that?
Look, I remember having great conversations with my conservative friends about right-to-try legislation. The idea that the government shouldn't tell you what kind of health care you should have. I just think the government shouldn't tell you what kind of health care you should have. And if you're a minor,
you want to try on kids?
Parent. Now, if you disagree with that, if you disagree that health care decisions need to be made by a doctor and their parents and a patient, then we think we agree to disagree. But, you want to put government inside
so, Abdul,
a clinic
you're
or
a doctor, right?
Selectively. I am.
So you think it's okay for a parent to slash his kid's thing-a-ling off? You think that's okay?
I mean, do you really want to have this conversation? Are you circumcised?
Yeah, but I mean, that's a
Jesse,
personal question.
Okay,
doctor.
So you probably should want to move on.
Is circumcision's different than castration?
I think it's a problem. It's a problem that you think that you get to decide what happens between a parent, a doctor, and a patient. And I'm just saying that, yes, circumcision is surgery on a kid's ding-a-ling. So if you really want to bring that up, you can. I just think you guys are really selective about how you want to talk about these things.
Abdul, Michigan's not going for that. That is sick stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely some ding-a-lings involved in this conversation. By the way, this is El Said on trans rights in celebration of trans awareness, one of the 42, 52, 72 days on the calendar where we're celebrating trans awareness or something associated with LGBTQIA2S++++++++++++++++++.
Right now, 31 bills have been introduced across the country to restrict healthcare access among trans people seeking gender-affirming care. It's ironic that a party that decries medical tyranny in the form of flimsy cloth masks thinks that it can get between a person and their doctor. To add insult to injury, an additional 66 bills have been introduced to restrict trans youth from school sports. Seriously? Let the kids play. Trans rights are human rights, and this Pride Month, remember that those rights are not a foregone conclusion in this country, and that we must keep up the fight for equal dignity, equal protection, and equal rights under the law.
And instead of saying Michigan won't go for that in the oafish way that Jesse Waters conducts his discourse, generally, I find, which is why Fox is generally unwatchable for me. When he said those things and he made the ridiculous comparison of removing a young boy's penis to circumcision, you're a medical doctor. What's the, let's follow the science. What does the science say about outcomes for transitioning kids? Did you read that landmark study out of Finland? What do you say to that? So parents don't have rights to abuse their kids, do they? Well, no, of course not. Okay. Well, when does this constitute abuse? Including by the doctor. And by the way, you'll take judicial notice of civil litigation that is pending against doctors who have been involved in these gruesome practices, and a settlement that was reached on behalf of someone who transed as a adolescent, right? You know these things. How about getting them on the substance rather than this back and forth and talking one another and trying to be glib so you don't come across as mean-spirited? How about just being room temperature and actually knowing what the hell you're talking about? I guess that's not a prerequisite to be on Fox. Clearly. Very annoying. Jim in LaGrange.
Hey, Dan, I'll give Jesse Waters a D- for last night with his performance. He doesn't fail only because he got the guy on the show. So from that perspective, it was kind of entertaining. But they needed somebody like you to be speaking to Mr. El-Sayed. The other thing is, I think that El-Sayed was trying to do one of two things the whole night, which was try to get Jesse Waters to agree with him on something. He kept saying, don't you agree with me? And he was clearly dinging Mike Rogers because he kept saying he's a beta male. So anyway, that's the highlight of my night, but of that discussion. But I think Jesse Waters missed so many opportunities. He was so poor in his rhetoric.
Yeah.
Anyway, have a great day.
Thanks for the call, Jim. Well, I mean, are you surprised? Really? Why did El-Sayed go on the show? Going back to the original question I posed. Why do you think he went on that show? He got exactly the clips he wanted for that base. And even for the swing vote. He seems reasonable and affable. And I don't know, it seemed like Jesse and him sort of agreed, or there was modest disagreements. You know, it wasn't too bad. I mean, they seem like if he can get along with Jesse Waters, how bad could he be? To the passive voter in Michigan. El-Sayed got exactly what he wanted from that appearance. Bob in Edison Park.
Yeah, I really believe that Waters went to the Sean Hannity school of debate because he's following right in his footsteps. And the bigger note on Fox News, just for some of your listeners who might think Fox News is still somewhat of a hope. I mean, you've got, I'm a big Second Amendment guy. You have Janie Perino and Trey Gowdy who have said things basically that they could join the Bloomberg Foundation with anti-Second Amendment issues. Fox News is a complete joke. And that's what scares me is that people still see Fox News as some type of conservative bastion of hope.
Yeah, well, thanks for the call, Bob. Relative to the options, I suppose. Yeah. Sigh. Dave in Crystal Lake.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Jesse is just a reader. He just reads things that are given to him. He's got no intellect, and from day one, that's how he's been. He's never improved. And listening to that interview, it was just sickening how he was walked all over him.
Thanks for the call, Dave. Steve in Spring Grove.
Hey, Dan, I hate to pile on him, but all these shows are like that, even if you go to Newsmax. But in a way, it's more dangerous to bring someone on like that is smarter than you and can help manipulate you, and then let them talk on your show if you're not prepared. So even Finnerty is the same. If you listen to him, they talk to when the whole Nancy Guthrie thing or the space aliens. I mean, they just don't have any clue. Just you can tell by the questions they ask these people. So I hate to pile on, but all those shows are like that. Even Shannon Bream, when you listen to her, you really wonder, does she really know what she's talking about?
Thanks for the call, Steve. The state of conservative thought, that's a whole nother discussion, at least as practiced by those who have public profiles. Unfortunately, I mean, Victor Davis Hanson and some have public profiles, but we need him to be on Fox 8 hours a day. Chris, Rogers Park.
Yeah, he went on there because he's shown he's a fighter, and he's also showing that he's a good old American who likes football. He tried to do that right at the beginning.
Yeah, right.
Jesse did have one good moment that I enjoyed. He said, "You want a tax billionaire? You want Beyonce to break you and your buddies off change after she gets too much money?" And Syed's reaction to that was like, "Oh," his face is almost like, "Oh, you got me there." And that was the one good point I think he had. But then Syed completely reversed that on him like a minute later, or a second later, actually. And he just said, "Oh, boo-hoo, they need another $30 million." So it was just nonsense.
Thanks for the call, Chris. Bill, Northwest Side.
Yeah, Dan, that whole thing was embarrassing. I mean, terrible questions, talking over the answers. I mean, that was just ridiculous. That whole thing was a waste of time.
Thanks for the call, Bill. Bob, Buffalo Grove.
Good morning, Dan. Always good talking to you. Your previous callers answered some of my comments. Yes, all the talking over was unbelievable. And then when El Sayed tried to answer questions, all he did was deflect to, the people are concerned about gas. They're concerned about their Medicare. No questions were really seriously answered. Just a lot of deflection and talking over. They should have had you on the program offering real questions. Have a good day.
Thanks for the call, Bob.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
We work a lifetime to build a legacy for our families, but the most enduring gift you can give them is the peace of mind you provide when they need it most. When you pre-plan your arrangements at Catholic Cemeteries of Chicago, you replace the weight of uncertainty with the gift of clarity. Secure today's costs and protect your family from making emotional and financial decisions at the time of need. It's a final act of love they'll never forget. Visit CatholicCemeteryChicago.org or call 708-236-5400.
Your kitchen's outdated. Your bathroom feels cramped. Every day you wait, prices go up. And you keep living in a space that doesn't work. At Forever Remodeling, one team handles everything. Design, planning, and installation, start to finish. We show you your new space in 3D before we ever break ground. No surprises. With flexible financing options, the home you want is closer than you think. Visit foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4, everremodeling.com to schedule your personalized in-home design consultation.
Scott Jennings fearlessly fights back against the mainstream media on the Scott Jennings podcast.
So the Democratic message for the 2026 midterm is, we don't love America. That's it. The message from the left is, as long as people that we don't like are allowed to win elections, we hate America. That's a heck of a thing to be running an election on. We hate America.
Subscribe for free today on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or SalemPodcastNetwork.com. AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up at 6:36, text me 847. Please ask him to your show. Oh, yeah, El Sayed. Yeah, we get some reach to Michigan. We'll see if we can coax him on the show. We'll try. Coming up at 6:36, we're going to talk to Michael Rubin, Director of Policy Analysis for the Middle East Forum. We'll talk about a little bit about El Sayed's good buddy Hassan Piker and his latest anti-Semitic rants, as well as, of course, the state of play with the Iranians and the Operation. What do they call it? Operation Economic Outcast that Bessent rolled out yesterday. That's what it is. Now we check the headlines with Mike Scott.
6:33, 61 degrees. Sunshine this morning in our QC Kinetics newsroom, headed for a high of 81. Nurses at St. Mary of Nazareth Hospital in Chicago's Ukrainian Village will go on strike from September 3rd to September 4th, just 8 weeks after voting to join the National Nurses United Union. Since the hospital organization that owns the St. Mary's of Nazareth Hospital bought it, it's faced criticism for changes that it made at some of the hospitals it now owns. It's also earning some praise from members of the Illinois Health Facility and Services Review Board for stepping in to try and run challenged hospitals. A man killed in an armed robbery in Brighton Park Tuesday morning. Chicago police say a suspect or suspects entered that business with a handgun, demanding money from a register. And while running from the scene, one of the suspects fired shots at a 36-year-old man, hitting him several times in the 3400 block of South California. The man was pronounced dead at the scene. U.S. and Canada spiraling deeper into a trade war. Fox Business's Lydia Hu this morning.
President Trump posting on Truth Social in part. On January 1st, 2027, tariffs on all cars, trucks, both large and small, automotive parts and steel will be increased to 50%. Build in the U.S. and there are zero tariffs. Canada will be treated like a state no longer. The goods represent about 5% of Canadian exports to the U.S. and are worth roughly $20 billion. Canada is responding. Dollar-for-dollar retaliatory tariffs take effect September 8th, targeting U.S. sectors including steel and dairy.
Voters in 3 states are heading to the polls in primary elections today. We're watching South Carolina in the race between Republican Senator Darlene Graham and Congressman Ralph Norman. The National Park Service turns 110 years old today. To celebrate, the agency is waiving all entry fees. A high-profile Chicago priest is being reinstated after facing sex abuse allegations. Father Michael Pfleger was reinstated at St. Sabina. An investigation by the Archdiocese of Chicago concluded he was not guilty of the allegation. Chicago's Cortlandt Street Bridge will remain closed for several years as the Chicago Department of Transportation works to try and rehabilitate the aging structure. It carries Cortlandt Street over the Chicago River between Lincoln Park and Bucktown. It was originally closed to vehicle traffic last September. Alderman Brian Hopkins says it's an outrageous lack of planning.
We don't even have a date for beginning the major construction work, let alone a completion date. It's totally up in the air, indeterminate.
Transportation experts with the city claim the nearly 125-year-old bridge is no longer capable of safely carrying vehicular traffic in its current construction. And in Wisconsin, there is a kangaroo on the loose this morning in Columbia County after escaping. It happened actually near Portage, not far from the Dells. 4 kangaroos were being transferred between trailers. The Wisconsin State Patrol this morning says 2 of the animals have been hit by vehicles. They did not survive. A 3rd recovered by the owners, and a 4th kangaroo still unaccounted for. Cubs shut out the Diamondbacks 7-0 to open a 3-game road series. White Sox crushed by the Rangers 11-2. A check of traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Freedom Summit Chicago returns to the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca on Saturday, October 10th. Headlined by investigative journalist James O'Keefe and former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. They'll be joined by Dan Proft, Sean Thompson, Jeannie Ives, Amy Jacobson, John Anthony, and many more. Tickets are on sale now at freedomsummitchicago.com. That's freedomsummitchicago.com. Sponsored in part by Edward Jones financial advisor Nolan Webster.
Chicagoland certified financial planning professional Tim Stearns discusses taxes in retirement.
Most people are paying more in taxes and keeping less of their money to live and do what they enjoy. That's why we've put out the retirement tax bill calculator online. You can see with your own eyes just how much you might be overpaying. It's a valuable tool, $500 value, but we made it free for you to view and run your own numbers at MVPCFP.com. That's MVPCFP.com.
To run your retirement tax bill calculator, go to MVPCFP.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Cornerstone Securities, LLC.
Welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Tim. My friend Tim Stearns, a certified financial planner with TJ Stearns Financial Planning in Arlington Heights. Tim, how are you? Welcome back.
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Tim, for more than 25 years, you've been helping clients achieve financial security and peace of mind. Can you give our listeners some examples of how you've helped clients over the years?
A couple of your listeners called in. They're a married couple. They're in their 60s. They were really concerned and tired of trying to manage their own investments. So their accounts were quite big, but they felt like they needed a little help with it so they didn't screw up at this stage of the game. So they couldn't afford to lose any money in the market moving forward, and trying to manage retirement on a fixed income was kind of a daunting task for them. So with about $1.5 million in 401k savings and other stocks and bonds, we rearranged their portfolio so that they had guaranteed future income, less volatility in the market, and of course tax savings. So now they have this peace of mind because they know that they have a protect and grow blueprint.
Thank you, Tim. If you're in your 50s or 60s, I want you to speak with my friend Tim Stearns, TJ Stearns Financial Planning. Tim will help you structure and optimize your savings to prepare for 20 to 30 years of enjoyable retirement. Call Tim today to schedule your free consultation and get your free Protect and Grow blueprint. Call 1-800-640-2256. Again, that number, 800-640-2256. Tell him I sent you when you call Tim at 800-640-2256.
Are you carrying more than $10,000 in credit card debt? Do you feel like you're running on a financial treadmill, making payment after payment, month after month, yet never getting ahead? If you're tired of watching your hard-earned money disappear into interest charges, there may be options available to help you take back control of your finances. At Total Financial Freedom, they'll show you what qualified consumers may be able to save through programs designed to help them resolve debt faster than making minimum payments alone. The consultation is free, confidential, and comes with absolutely no obligation. Why spend years, sometimes decades, paying thousands in interest when there may be a better path forward? Total Financial Freedom is a Christian-owned company that has helped thousands of Americans pursue financial freedom for nearly 20 years and is proudly A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now and ask how you can receive a complimentary copy of The Debt Dietitian. Stop running in place. Start moving toward financial freedom at 866-844-7344. 866-844-7344.
The new All-Pro battery by Steel. Tackle any task with 60% more peak power. Exclusively available only at your local Steel dealer. 60% peak power comparison between AP300PC and AP300S.
640. Team Hochberg traffic center time. Tri-State Tollway accident, 3 right lanes blocked. Northbound right before Southwest Highway. You're backed up to Crawford. Major delays this morning on the northbound Tri-State. Reagan I-88, an entrance ramp is closed due to a rollover accident. It's eastbound on the on-ramp from southbound Farnsworth Avenue, causing big delays. Cleanup to an earlier semi-fire has a right lane block westbound I-80 just after Manuka Road. Traffic, a service of ExpressPros.com. If you work in logistics, you know nothing moves without you. Companies need skilled pros now. Express Employment Professionals can help you find contract or full-time work that fits. No cost to you. ExpressPros.com. Support, options, get to work. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of the morning forecast in our Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center. Partly sunny, a pleasant day ahead, and a high of 81.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering 24/7 security solutions for homes and businesses. Call them today at 708-889-5600.
Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios. Sean Fest returns on August 28th at the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Registration is free. Go to 560theanswer.com/SHAUN Fest.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. I want to get to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's announcement of Operation Economic Outcast and some of the things he had to say. But continuing our discussion of Michigan Senate candidate and terrorist-adjacent Islamo-fascist Abdul El-Sayed, his good buddy that he likes to, lift with, hang out with, Hasan Piker.
What a day. What a productive day. Talked about Trump. Talked about Trump potentially dying. Did a speech at the Palestine People's Conference. Now we're out here with Senate hopeful Dr. Abdul El-Sayed getting the lift in.
Getting the lift in, as bros do, talking about the President of the United States dying, as bros do. Jeremy Moss is a congresswoman from Michigan, and he's not sure he can support El-Sayed because of the things he said about Jewish people, about Israel, frankly, about America, as well as his association with Hasan Piker. Hasan Piker's response to Jeremy Moss's dithering as to whether or not he can bring himself to support El-Sayed in the Senate race brought this response.
And you want to know why? Because people don't with Israel any longer. And if Jews in America keep putting this idea out there that they are singularly invested in Israel, eventually someone's going to come around and take action, not against the state of Israel, mind you, but against American Jews. Okay? We're teaching people the wrong lesson. I don't know how people don't recognize how dangerous this predicament is, how dangerous this is for Jews. You're running around basically tying your entire identity to a country that inevitably will be seen as basically Jewish ISIS. And you're saying, as Jews, this is all we care about. You're making anti-Semitism worse.
El-Sayed issued this statement in response. I believe all Americans deserve the right to advocate for what they believe without fear of violence, because the threat of violence was not exactly couched in Piker's comments you just heard. Blah, blah, blah. My commitment to Jewish safety is the same as my commitment to the safety of my own daughters. Sure it is. Anti-Semitism is a scourge, and we need to address it in all its forms. And I stand against any rhetoric that puts the community at risk. Nobody speaks for this campaign besides me and my spokespeople. While politicians and pundits try to make this race about a Twitch streamer, we're going to be talking about gas, groceries, blah, 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 the switch to affordability and those pocketbook issues and quality of life issues that El-Sayed is really focused upon. Sure he is. Credible? Well, let me give you an example of what he could have said in response to Piker's comments, but chose not to. This is from a Democrat rep, Jake Auchincloss from Massachusetts. He was asked about Piker as well, and this is what he said. See if you can compare and contrast.
I reject Hasan Piker's ideology, whether it was seeming to celebrate or at least excuse 9/11, whether it is seeming to excuse the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which I condemned immediately. The Democratic Party does not stand for what Hasan Piker stands for.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. That may be a bit of wishful thinking. For more on this and other matters, Michael Rubin, Director of Policy Analysis for the Middle East Forum, joins us. Michael, thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, before we get to the Middle East, your comments on El Sayed and this latest contretemps.
You know what? There's one thing that worries me about El Sayed that people aren't talking about, and I'm worried about everything you've been saying. If he were to be elected to the Senate, oftentimes senators get at least one person in addition to themselves who is able to achieve top secret clearance just by default. And if the Democrats, especially if it's a progressive Democrat who wins the Oval Office, puts them on the intelligence community, you're going to be having someone who's openly sympathetic to state sponsors of terror like Hamas, having the top U.S. security clearance. And we all know then that we're going to be reading in Huffington Post and in The Atlantic and in any numbers of other left-wing publications, the latest American intelligence. We're on the verge of something very, very dangerous here.
That's a good point. And God only knows if he makes his mom his chief of staff, it would be even that much worse. Or his sister, his stepsister from the University of Chicago. Yeah, it's quite a crew they've put together there in Michigan.
It wouldn't be the first time.
No, it wouldn't.
You know, it wouldn't be the first time, Dan, that you've actually had someone with a mother who's been working for a terrorist group. We saw this with Rob Malley, and we saw what damage he did. His mother used to work for the Islamists in Algeria at a time when they were murdering people left and right.
No, it's a good point you raise, the security clearance, and you're right. People haven't been talking about it. Maybe that's something I would think that's something Mike Rogers would bring up, given his background in law enforcement and intel. So we'll see how that campaign transpires. I wanted to get to Bessent, though, of course, and Operation Economic Outcast. Here's in pertinent part what he had to say. Take a listen.
At President Trump's direction, the United States Treasury has begun Operation Economic Outcast, an unprecedented campaign against the Islamic Republic of Iran and its enablers. In the Second World War, D-Day marked the historic beginning of a campaign with our allies to target and drive the enemy from its positions, including those in third countries. Today, in that same spirit, we are launching an economic onslaught against Iran's financial connections around the globe. Our objective is to sever every economic lifeline that sustains this tyrannical regime until Tehran stands alone.
And he announced sanctions on 60 organizations and individuals, as well as describe the mapping of all the nodes and players that facilitate Iran's money laundering that will all be targeted. And there's a cure period that's being provided to every country in the world, and anybody who doesn't comply, including China, because he was asked, will be removed from the U.S. dollar system. What's your reaction to Operation Economic Outcast?
I have a few reactions here. Number one, it's a good move. In some ways, it's too little too late. What was stopping us from doing this before? But on the other hand, just like bombing has never alone won a war, sanctions alone have never won a war. And so you have a situation that with the Iranian rial, their currency, dropping to more than 2 million to the dollar, when you have the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Mohammad Bakr Kalibaf, saying that the Iranian people are starving, you actually have to put an asterisk next to that. Because most Iranians know Mohammad Bakr Kalibaf not as the Speaker of the Parliament, not as the chief negotiator with the United States, but as the most corrupt individual inside Iran who has billions of dollars to his name. I can guarantee you that Kalibaf himself won't be starving. And this brings us to the North Korea problem. Sanctions only work and deprivation only works if the regime in place actually gives a hoot about its own people. But if the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps prioritizes ideology above the Iranians themselves, I don't see them stopping their pursuit of nuclear weapons and terrorism.
But will it diminish? Significantly diminish more so than has already been accomplished, their ability to project terrorist power outside their borders?
Perhaps in the long term, and we tried this before during the Clinton administration with extraterritorial sanctions back in 1995 and 1996. The problem is we had just given Iran $6 billion through this memorandum of understanding, and we need to recognize that once we give the Iranians pallets of cash, and we saw this under the Obama administration as well, ultimately it takes months for that money to work its way out of the system. A lot of people forget to stage a suicide bombing. It only costs about $5,000 once you have the networks and training in place. So $6 billion can fund a lot of suicide bombings. Ultimately, we've got to be in this for the long game. And here's the problem in American politics right now. It seems that many Democrats are much more interested in making Donald Trump lose and embarrassing Donald Trump than in understanding that the Islamic Republic of Iran poses a grave and growing threat to the United States, and the Iranians don't give a hoot about who is in the Oval Office. They just want to see death to America. What I would actually do, in addition to these sanctions, is challenge any candidate, both Democrat and Republican, not simply to litigate the past, but actually explain, without wishful thinking, how they're going to stop the Islamic Republic of Iran from spreading their revolution, from interfering with freedom of navigation, and from sponsoring terrorism. Wishful thinking won't cut it.
Is the ability to get oil through the strait, as evidenced by the reporting on Friday, 16 million barrels of oil moving through the strait, almost pre-war levels, does that indicate that we have time, the combination of the ability to move traffic through the strait with the blockade combined with this new economic sanctions regime, that we have time to be patient here and let what is been initiated work itself against the regime?
Yeah, I absolutely think we do. We've always had more time on our side than the Iranians have. That's something which a lot of the so-called news analysis we're seeing in major newspapers that they simply don't understand. They were buying Iranian rhetoric at face value. That's always a mistake. Remember, the Saudis also have the Trans-Arabian pipeline through which 7 million barrels of oil pass per day to the Red Sea. So the fact of the matter is time is on our side. Perhaps if you want a historical analogy, Dan, you saw in Serbia in 1999, Bill Clinton bombed them. He didn't manage to remove Slobodan Milosevic, but the next year, the economic misery in Serbia led to a people power revolution that ended up ousting Slobodan Milosevic, the Serbian dictator.
Michael Rubin, Director of Policy Analysis for the Middle East Forum. Michael, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Michael joined us in the alfwealthgroup.com answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Welcome back to Ask Hasslis. I'm Weston. What's your question?
Is this one of those viral pranks?
Beg your pardon?
I think you promote Hasslis Mattresses employee-free showrooms just to lure me in so you can film a practical joke on me to go viral.
Sir, I assure you, we take employee-free mattress shopping very seriously.
What do? Tie me to a bed and spray me with silly string?
We simply let you try our selection of Beautyrest, Sealy Posturepedic, and more without commission-crazy salespeople breathing down your neck.
Good one.
Others sell a Beauty Sleep by Beautyrest Queen Elm Cove A mattress for $1,599, but Hasslis has it for just $794.
Sure you do.
And through Monday, get a free adjustable base with the purchase of a select Sealy Posturepedic or Beautyrest mattress, plus free next day delivery.
So shopping at Hasslis won't make me TikTok famous?
Absolutely not.
Darn.
Open 9 to 9. Find an employee-free showroom near you or shop online at Hasslis.com.
AM 560. The Answer.
That sound means it's time for In-Depth History with Frank, the history teacher from Arlington Heights, because there's nothing new in this world, just the history you don't know, and Frank does. Frank, take it away.
Good morning. Oil sands are basically heavy crude oil in a more solid form. Old technologies got at these reserves mostly through direct excavation, separation, and then rail transport to refineries. But SAGD, or steam-assisted gravity drainage, is much cheaper, as it is a method where two parallel pipes are drilled first vertically and then turn horizontally underneath the deposit. Hot water is then pumped into one pipe to melt the sands above, and then the liquid crude is collected in the other and pumped to the surface. This SAGD is very environmentally friendly as well. No need to worry about moose or birds going berserk. And the Athabasca Oil Sands Formation near Fort McMurray in Alberta, Canada, is the largest known such deposit in the world at 1.8 trillion barrels of oil. And although all of this isn't recoverable with current SAGD, it might be someday as technology improves, just like fracking tech improved many old conventional oil wells in Texas. This is why Canada, or at least the western part of it, will someday become the 51st state. It's also why the Keystone Pipeline will someday be completed. This is pure geopolitics akin to the Monroe Doctrine keeping Europe out, or Roosevelt's corollary in the Caribbean and Panama securing our perimeter there. Prime Minister Mark Carney's rejection of the recently negotiated trade deal is merely a rearguard action, as Canada cannot prosper without significant U.S. trade, and hints at China as an alternative. The U.S. cannot allow this, much like President Tyler could not allow Britain or France to dominate Texas in 1845. So Texas was annexed by joint resolution, getting the perpetual right to break up into 5 states in these negotiations. That type of offer can be extended to the Canadian Western provinces too. So Canada, as we know its fate is sealed, much like the Neo-Babylonian empires was in 540 BC, as described in the book of Daniel. The writing is on the wall.
Wow. Bold predictions, Frank from Arlington Heights. By the way, you sound like Billy Bob Thornton in Landman talking about crude oil. Very impressive.
Well, that is a big compliment, 'cause that's like my favorite show now.
No, it's the best, and it's basically Billy Bob Thornton, I think, being who he actually is. It just, in an oil context. But
right.
That's pretty impressive. So you like the posture that Trump and the Trump team has taken with Mark Carney and company so far, Mark Carney and Doug Ford?
Yeah, and I think it's what needs to be done. I think Carney is a globalist. I think he doesn't mean well for the United States. And I think Trump is doing what he needs to do to defend our country and look out for our interests in the long term. And that's what this is.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Boy, look forward to Canada being, or at least part of it being, the 51st state. You heard it here first.
Well,
Frank, thank you as always. Wonderful job. Appreciate it. And coming up at 7:07, our latest installment of Sports and Politics. Bottom of the 7 o'clock hour, Mark Glennon, all things Illinois policy. It's now 7 o'clock on AM 560 WIND.
Operation Economic Outcast. Gianna Gelosi, Fox News. That is what the Trump administration is calling its new plan to impose punishing sanctions on countries and entities that do business with Iran.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent launched Operation Economic Outcast, warning of strong sanctions against nations doing business with Iran.
It is now a time for world leaders to make a decision between prosperity and isolation.
Bessent says a process of level setting is underway to let countries know what is expected of them.
It is no longer acceptable to operate in the gray spaces of this conflict.
Iran's currency hit a record low Monday, and the United Arab Emirates announced last week it is suspending all trade and financial transactions with Iran. At the White House, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Meantime, Canada will reportedly unveil new retaliatory tariffs against the U.S. today. It's the latest escalation between the two nations and Canada's response after President Trump told Canadian leaders to fall in line.
President Trump posting on Truth Social in part. On January 1st, 2027, tariffs on all cars, trucks, both large and small, automotive parts and steel will be increased to 50%. Build in the U.S. and there are zero tariffs. Canada will be treated like a state no longer. The goods represent about 5% of Canadian exports to the U.S. and are worth roughly $20 billion. Canada is responding. Dollar-for-dollar retaliatory tariffs take effect September 8th, targeting U.S. sectors including steel and dairy.
And that's Fox Business's Lydia Hu. Meantime, President Trump posting on Truth Social today, the United States is giving serious consideration to changing the name of Lake Ontario to Lake America, and that we don't expect to be doing much business with Ontario any longer. America's listening to Fox News.
.702, 62 degrees and sunshine this morning in the QC Kinetics newsroom. A man was killed in an armed robbery in the Brighton Park neighborhood Tuesday morning. Chicago police say a suspect or suspects entered a business with handguns demanding money. While running from the scene, a 36-year-old man was hit by gunfire several times. The man pronounced dead at the scene in the 3400 block of South California. Governor Mike Braun is calling for the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission to investigate NIPSCO. Tens of thousands remained without power over the weekend after severe storms 2 weeks ago. Governor Braun wants the IURC to review NIPSCO's preparedness. He's also calling on that commission to look into whether the state funding for infrastructure improvements was actually spent as promised. Yesterday in Gary, hundreds showed up to an impromptu cookout where relief supplies were handed out.
We thought we were forgotten about, and it's taken them so long to help us. NIPSCO has not kept their promise.
In NIPSCO's defense, some crews were shot at in Gary as they assessed storm damage and began to restore power. As of this morning, nearly 4,000 residents are still in the dark. A Chicago woman taking a plea deal in the death of her boyfriend in 2022. Kesha Golden spoke yesterday after pleading guilty to involuntary manslaughter in exchange for 2 years of probation.
I feel like I did the right thing for my child instead of putting this all on, going to trial and putting it all on social media. And all. I do not want to hurt my child no more than what she already hurt.
She claims she was acting in self-defense when she stabbed her child's father, Calvin Sidney, in October of 2022. Golden was 8 months pregnant at the time of the incident. Cubs shut down the Diamondbacks 7-0 to open a 3-game road set, while the White Sox were crushed by the Rangers at home 11-2. The news, a service of Salem Surround, a local digital marketing agency. You can go to surroundchicago.com today. A check of traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Alex Marlowe sees a positive on the jobs front.
Government jobs fell as usual. They fell 53,000. 53,000 public sector jobs are gone. That's a positive. Private sector payrolls rose 30,000, which is kind of low, but a lot of those jobs were added in construction and manufacturing. We're seeing a manufacturing renaissance in this country.
The Alex Marlowe Show, afternoons at 3, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer, WIND, Chicago.
Hi, I'm Kirk Cameron. Christian Healthcare Ministries is not another health insurance policy. If you're tired of year-long contracts and pointless restrictions, CHM offers anytime enrollment on your schedule and at your convenience. With CHM, you're paying half the cost of a traditional health insurance plan. So that puts more money back into your budget for everyday needs. Plus, you'll have access to CHM's care solutions for virtual appointments, prescription savings, surgery support, and more. My family and I joined in 2018, and it's changed our lives for the better. We love paying way less while helping other believers afford their medical bills. Take the leap of faith and see why Christians across the nation are better with CHM.
Get started by calling 1-833-JOIN-CHM and use promo code WELLNESS for a 50% credit towards your first month. That's 1-833-JOIN-CHM and use promo code WELLNESS.
When it comes to supplements, two things matter most. A, that it works, and that you can trust it. Rather than just tell you about Relief Factor, we'll let our audience do that. We hear from people every single day whose lives have changed, and I want you to hear a few of their stories. Doug took Relief Factor for nearly a year before convincing his wife, a special needs teacher, to try it. She had been using assistance just to move through the long hallways at school. Now she's back on her feet every day and never had to leave the job that she loves. I remember when buttoning my shirt was almost impossible, but Relief Factor changed how I'm able to do it and the simple things again. And they make it really easy now for you to find out if you can be the next person that's telling us about Relief Factor and how it gave you your life back. 3 weeks, $17.76. Try it. ReliefFactor.com, 800-4RELIEF. You'll connect with their friendly local team, and they'll do everything they can to help. We hope you soon will be sharing your story with us as well. ReliefFactor.com.
Signature, a division of Esquire Bank, offers Chicago businesses relationship-first banking. Signature knows your name and your story because personalized banking still matters. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature is where I do my business banking.
Hi, I'm Tony Patrick, CEO of Total Wall and a client of Signature. We produce high-performance materials used in exterior insulating finish systems and other stucco applications. During a recent business transaction, I learned quickly that having the right banking partner matters. Signature stepped in, took time to understand my business needs, and kept things moving. If you need a banking partner you can rely on, look for a team with real experience and a commitment to your success. For me, that's Signature.
Signature helps local businesses succeed. Want to learn how Signature can help turn your business vision into reality? Call Signature, a division of Esquire Bank, at 773-467-5600 or visit signature.esquirebank.com. Esquire Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
7:08, Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Due to an earlier accident, the Ike is jammed up on the inbound side. Damon into the circle. DuSable Lakeshore Drive, northbounders jammed up 18th to Monroe. Tri-State, earlier accident causing big delays northbound right before Southwest Highway. Reagan I-88, the entrance ramp, the onbound ramp from southbound Farnsworth Avenue is shut down due to a rollover accident in the cleanup stages there. And an accident as you travel near Waukegan, Belvedere Road, and Wilcox. Traffic, a service of Fox Valley Coins. It's a great time to bring in your scrap gold jewelry, sterling flatware, cash, or check offered on the spot. FoxValleyCoins.com. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of the morning forecast in the Air Ride Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today will bring partly sunny skies and pleasant conditions with a high of 80. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 66. Tomorrow, there will be times of clouds and sun with a chance of a thunderstorm in spots from late morning on. It'll be humid with gusty winds potentially accompanying any downpour, and the high will reach 83. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering smart security systems to homes and businesses. Call Goldilocks at 708-889-5600.
Now, from the Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Sports and politics and sports and politics and sports and politics and intersection. Arrogance and ignorance. Arrogance, ignorance, and arrogance and ignorance. Intersection.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, and I feel like Judge Schmales in Caddyshack. I don't want to do it, but I feel like I owe it to you to continue talking about the WNBA. Certainly, as long as new characters are introduced for us to take notice of, like this Natasha Cloud, who plays for the Chicago Sky. She's the one who got into it with Enes Kanter Freedom, had him tossed from the game they played against the Indiana Fever, Caitlin Clark's team. And Enes Kanter explained, the profanity-laced screed that she lobbed in his direction because he had a shirt on that defined what a woman was, as the WNBA is still wrestling with said definition. Although there is word seeping out that they're not going to allow Enes Kanter Freedom or Royce White, former NBAers, to be drafted, even though they're making themselves available for next year's draft. No surprise there, even as they don't know what a woman is, and the only standard seems to be if you declare yourself one, which both Enes Kanter and Royce White have, and Royce White even going so far as to wear a wig. which is, basically all that a lot of these men pretending to be women do that you see showing up at school board meetings and so forth. So I don't know what the standard is. WNBA is still working it out. And now Natasha Cloud has responded to the confrontation that she initiated between her and Cantor. To every trans kid, person, you're part of my community and tribe. You belong, you're loved, you're seen, you're perfect as you are, and you will always be protected by me. You're perfect as you are. It's an interesting statement since they're not accepting who they are. Come as you are. Anyway, it's all about the love with her. But is it, though? Natasha Cloud, biblical scholar.
Happy Sunday, everybody. I'm about to go on my rant because my
that's
biggest
her.
pet peeve is hypocrisy, but especially on Sundays. If y'all went to church today and upon leaving that church, you still oppose SNAP benefits to our most marginalized communities, you are a hypocrite. If you left church today and don't want universal health care for our most marginalized communities, you are a hypocrite. If you left church today and you are still calling for the deportation of human beings on stolen land, you are a hypocrite. If you are still complicit in genocides around the world, you are a hypocrite. Because that is not the teachings of God. That is not the teachings of Jesus. Jesus was the most radical being, period, that served and even cleaned the feet of the most marginalized. What is wrong with y'all? Stop going to church.
Got a bit of a husky voice, a little Kathleen Turner action going on there with Natasha Cloud, I guess. All about the love there. Very much communicating as Jesus would, I'm sure. She also said that Charlie Kirk, quote, had it coming after he was assassinated, calling him a racist and misogynistic. She claimed that the assassin was a far-right Republican. Things Jesus would do. Natasha Cloud says America is, quote, racist trash. The system is all about, quote, white men. White people need to, quote, shut up and listen. And white nationalism is the biggest threat to the West. Ironically, very much in Colin Kaepernick fashion, it turns out apparently she was raised by two honkies. Her mom, Sharon, is a honky. Her stepdad, Emil, is a honky. He worked two jobs, went to every practice, and raised Natasha as his own after his wife had an affair with a black man. Ooh. This is Gina Milan posting on X about this. Quite a story when you're ranting against white people for being white people. But, as I said, in very Kaepernick fashion. Text from 630, Dave from Geneva. That voice definitely has some balls behind it. Yeah, she's definitely got the balls to say what she said. She's unabashed. She is dropping them on the table and saying, how do you like those? New York Liberty, going very much the same way, the censorious way of that Atlanta franchise. I forget the name. Don't really care. The New York Liberty, also a WNBA team, and they allow for scoreboard messages, but only positive ones.
Own scoreboard that you're looking at there to welcome transgender fans with messages reading things like, hey, trans fans, glad you're here, go Liberty. Though Outkick reports that Liberty rejected a message supporting female-only sports and actually refunded the fans cash, saying messages have to be positive and celebratory.
Mm-hmm. A hip-hop artist named Julie Potter performed at a Liberty game, and she was also censored by the Liberty because she had a pro Jennifer Say, Jennifer Say, the former gymnast who started this XXXY sports clothing company to promote girls' sports and girls only in girls' sports. Jennifer Say, mugged by the reality of leftism. She used to be one, and she used to be an executive retail in the retail space. But mugged by the reality of the COVIDian left, So the combination of COVID and this gender-bending business has Jennifer Sey singing a different tune than she was just a few years ago. But first, here is Julie Potter, the hip-hop artist who was censored by the Liberty because her comments were, like you just heard, not positive and celebratory.
So my original message was, thank you, Jennifer Sey, XXXY Athletics will save the day. Then their response was, or their altercation of this was, thank you, Jennifer Sey. Thank you for all you do for XXXY Athletics. Yeah, they said it was not in the spirit and it wasn't positive.
Yeah, saving the day implies that men shouldn't be playing women's sports, because that's the message that Jennifer Sey is delivering personally as well as via her company. Jennifer Sey responding to that development with the WNBA and and the Liberty.
I mean, Tobias here is so clear. All she did was thank me. She said the brand would save the day. She didn't say what. She was very careful with her language, and still that wasn't sufficient for them. They said it wasn't celebratory, and it was essentially hateful, which is ridiculous. They don't want to acknowledge that our side is winning, that this brand is in fact having an impact. But here's the thing, Dana, every time they censor someone, more people come to our side because the censors are not the good guys. So they're stepping in it.
Exactly. You know, I said this yesterday. The more you see of the WNBA, the more it is undoing itself. Just as the more you see men parading as women, and to a lesser extent, women parading as men at school board meetings, behaving poorly, offering profane and intemperate remarks. Not always, but often. More instances of the mentally infirmed committing acts of violence. The more profile, the worse it gets for them, because it's an untenable position. And their behavior sort of undermines the sentimentality that otherwise afflicts so many. Shakes some people who are not completely given over to it out of their doldrums a bit, don't you think? I think. But that doesn't mean that everybody who agrees with us or agrees with people like me who believe that men and women's sports should be separate, agrees with what Enes Kanter Freedom did. And I guess Royce White as well. Charlemagne the God, radio talker out of New York, not happy with Enes Kanter Freedom. He's the one that is causing the controversy, you see. It's unnecessary. He's making a spectacle of himself.
I'm not giving Enes Kanter Freedom donkey today because he believes biological males shouldn't compete against biological females in women's sports. I agree with him on that. Okay, that's not even a debate for me. And I just think it's pointless to argue when you know it's only being used as a distraction because the midterms are right around the corner and Republicans can't win on policy, so they would rather drag people into another stupid culture war to debate so they can claim to be the party of common sense and Dems the party of people who don't know if
we drag them into the culture.
I'm giving Enes donkey today because this guy has somehow decided that the best way to protect women's basketball is to disrupt women's basketball. Okay, you, Enes, have become what you claim to hate because I haven't seen anyone threaten women's basketball more than you. Okay, do you think those women felt safe with your big 6'10" ass out there trolling them and then had the nerve to stand up and act like you was about to step to one of them? Make that make sense to me. Okay, see, Enes isn't just expressing an opinion anymore. This man declared himself eligible for the 2027 WNBA draft, saying he identifies as a woman as part of his protest against the league's transgender eligibility rules. Meanwhile, in the WNBA, there are currently no immediate eligibility matters affecting their league. Okay, basically, ain't no transgender women trying to take your job in the WNBA right now. That is not happening, okay? No transgenders are out here like, let me suit up. So people like Enes are protesting a hypothetical. There are no biological males playing in the WNBA. That we know of.
That we know of.
There are no biological males trying to play in the WNBA except for you. So therefore, Enes, you are actually the problem, but what you're protesting is a hypothetical.
Is Enes the problem? for protesting a hypothetical. Is that what it is? I guess I would ask Charlemagne this question. Does the WNBA, does it have cultural power? I mean, you have fans showing up to these games, right, Charlemagne? You have profile. Some people like Angel Reese, and some kids like Caitlin Clark, and some kids like Sophie Cunningham, so on and so forth. I'm sure some kids even like Natasha Cloud. I weep for them if they do. So does it have cultural power? If the answer is yes, then it's not a hypothetical, is it? Because they have brought this issue to the table. They're taking a position as a league pretty clearly. And that has cultural impact down the line. So if somebody is doing something or proposing something that is inane, do you address it at its inception, or do you wait till the consequences of the inanity are visited upon people? Wouldn't you, if it's something is inane and has the potential to spread, wouldn't you want to stop it before it spread? I mean, in this case, we're past post, it's already spread. But the idea, because it's a hypothetical, as the WNBA has put together a blue ribbon committee to figure out what a woman is, that Enes Kanter is making a spectacle of himself. No. This, from the beginning, and this is what the left always tries to do, they initiate a reordering of the human condition, whether it's redefining marriage or redefining sex, and they generate a response, and they say, oh, the conservatives are involved in a culture war. They're prosecuting a culture war. No, we're counter-revolutionaries to the revolutions that they instigate. That's the actual sequence of this, isn't it? And because professional athletes have cultural power and professional leagues have cultural power, these things should be addressed, because they impact how the sport is played down the line. They impact how sports are played and people's perceptions of these matters generally. And so they absolutely have to be debated and discussed. Determinations have to be made, even before there's a dude on the court in a WNBA game, which probably is not that far in the offing, frankly. Nice try, though, Charlemagne. Maybe we'll get him on the show, too, if we can. George in Naperville.
Yes, Dan, a big thank you for distilling the WNBA on a daily basis for us.
You know, I try, George. I'm getting more knowledgeable with each passing day on the vagaries and the rosters in the WNBA. It's an exciting time. One other matter in sports and politics I just want to take notice of, bad actors. Man, I mean, honestly, maybe it was something in the water. Maybe he got referred by Bob Kraft. 49ers owner Jed York nabbed for prostitution in East Palestine, Ohio. That's the water comment. Sorry, too soon. He went to a website known for prostitution, arranged sexual activity with a female in exchange for $140, showed up at the Wheat Hill mobile home community ready for action, and there was a county human trafficking task force agent there, and he was arrested. 1 day in jail, $1,150 in fine. He's also completed some online courses. Oh, man. How are things at home for Jed York? He is married. Ouch. Deborah in Arlington Heights on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Good morning, Dan. Well, first of all, Charlemagne loses me right at the beginning with him deeming himself God. Maybe you ought to start calling yourself Dan the Almighty.
No, I'll try to retain a little bit more humility than Charlemagne. Yes, but thanks.
No, that is not working for you. Anyway, like it's just one big specious rant on his part, and he's just projecting. Like that's the problem is not who he's saying the problem is.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Deborah. And it's it's what we said in this show, what Jennifer Say repeated in her conversation on Fox yesterday about the imbroglio with the Liberty. Which is, do what tennis did, and just have a test, just have a standard deal. I mean, it's just really, this is a legitimate position. We don't know what a woman is. This is a legitimate position. Let the kids play. Okay, well, let the adults play too. So what's the problem? We don't want to have the implications of our fashionable views visited upon us. So, no, Enes Kanter, Freedom, and Royce White are the problem. No, your coaches and most of your players are the problem, actually. Dan in Lombard.
Hey, morning, Dan. Yeah, Charlemagne saying that this is a hypothetical protest sounds an awful lot like the hypothetical protest for No King's Day, which I don't think he had a problem with.
Thanks for the call, Dan. Grant in Rockford.
Good morning. I would say there's already men in the league. There are photos of Brittany, I'm going to call it Griner, shooting a hoop, and there's no top on, and that's a dude. I don't know if you've seen those photos. It was right after she got out of Russian prison.
Yeah,
that's a dude.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe we should start checking the since everybody can go into the washrooms these days too. Maybe you get somebody to do a locker room washroom check and see if there are any urinals in the ladies' locker rooms in the WNBA. You know what I mean?
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
Near the end of the Revolutionary War, George Washington received a letter from one of his own officers. Colonel Louis Nicola suggested that America might be better served by a monarchy, with Washington himself as king. Washington firmly rejected the idea. He had spent years leading Americans in a fight for independence from a monarchy. He would not see that victory end with America creating a king of its own. He understood that the cause of the revolution was greater than any one man. His example reminds us that power can be offered, earned, or taken. But character determines whether we use it for ourselves or remain faithful to something greater.
Are you turning 65 and thinking about Medicare? Or are you over 65 and haven't enrolled yet because you still have coverage at work? Either way, Medicare done correctly will be the best health insurance you will ever have. Imagine having an annual deductible of only $283. There are only two good things about aging, wisdom and Medicare. But to navigate the Medicare maze properly, you need a mentor. Best part? My guidance costs you nothing. Call me. I can help.
If you're tired of calling a bureaucrat at an 800 number to help you navigate Medicare, then you need a local expert on your side, your own health insurance mentor. C. Stephen Tucker from healthinsurancementors.com is someone I know and trust. He's a 30-year licensed broker who's been educating our listeners for more than a decade. Steve, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Thanks, Dan. They can visit healthinsurancementors.com or call me directly at 630-674-1551. That's 630-674-1551.
If you're a tax-paying, law-abiding lover of America and the American dream, you need to be listening to Saving the American Dream with Jim Martyr. Every Saturday at 7 p.m., Jim tackles the issues that matter most: faith, family, freedom, and the fight to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Saving the American Dream with Jim Martyr. Heard Saturday evenings at 7 right here on AM 560 The Answer. Podcasts available at 560theanswer.com.
Gear up this fall with the new All-Pro battery by Steel. Tackle any task with 60% more peak power. And a fast charge time of just 10 minutes means it's ready when you are. The All-Pro battery is just the upgrade your shed has been waiting for. Outperform the outdoors with battery tools by Steel. Exclusively available only at your local Steel dealer. 60% peak power. Comparison between AP300PC and AP300S. 10-minute charge time to reach 80% with AL1602MO.
AM 560, The Answer.
Cook County Treasurer's Office reporting that the median tax bill for Cook County homeowners increased by 6.7% in the north and northwest suburbs. 6.7%. All right. Well, you ain't seen nothing yet based on where government pension funding levels are, including for your local police and fire. We'll start there with Mark Glennon, all things Illinois policy related. WirePoints.org founder Mark Glennon, 7:37. Now we check the headlines with Mike Scott.
62 degrees and sunshine, and a pleasant afternoon high of 81 in our QC Kinetics newsroom. A man killed in an armed robbery in Brighton Park early this morning. Police say a suspect or suspects entered a business with handguns demanding money. While running from the scene with the cash, a suspect fired shots at a 36-year-old man, hitting him several times. The man pronounced dead at the scene. The incident took place in the 3400 block of South California. The White House is outlining what it calls an economic D-Day against Iran.
We are launching an economic onslaught against Iran's financial connections around the globe.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying the new sanctions amount to an economic onslaught, trying to further isolate Iran from the rest of the world.
They have murdered and maimed more of our citizens and service members than any other terrorist regime on earth. And they have been at war against America, their neighbors in the Gulf, and much of the world for 47 years.
Speaking from the Treasury Department on Monday, 3 states holding primary elections today, including South Carolina. Crew members on board the USS Abraham Lincoln look to be headed to Thailand before returning to San Diego. The ship will arrive for a port of call in early September. The National Park Service turns 110 years old today. To celebrate, the agency is waiving entrance fees. A high-profile Chicago priest is being reinstated after facing sex abuse allegations. Father Michael Flager was reinstated to his position at St. Sabina Church. He was removed after being accused of sexually abusing a girl, a student at St. Sabina, between 1993 and 95. An investigation by the Archdiocese concluded he was not guilty of that allegation. One person legally detained following a crash involving federal police along the Stevenson Expressway. State police say when the accident happened yesterday, authorities were trying to pin in a vehicle at Damon Avenue, then arrested the driver. No injuries were reported. The arrest drew protesters, some elected officials, and community activists to the scene. Health officials are confirming there is a case of measles in Kane County. It involves a Kane County resident and several different healthcare partners, including the State Department of Public Health, are trying to identify and notify those who may have been exposed. And I guess it pays to win a college football national title. A divided highway, Old Hoosier Highway in Wells County, Indiana, just south of Fort Wayne, now has new names, 2 new names. The County Highway Commission voted to name the highway's northbound side North Signetti Way, and then the southbound side South Signetti Way. Of course, after Indiana University head football coach Curt Cignetti, the signs went up this week. Chicago sports, Cubs shut out the Diamondbacks 7-0. White Sox crushed by the Rangers 11-2. The news, a service of the AM 560 mobile app at 560theanswer.com/mobile. A check of traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Join John Anthony, host of Black and Right, for the 7th annual Live on the Lake cruise on Lake Michigan, Saturday, September 19th. Come aboard the luxury yacht Free Spirit for a fun afternoon with fellow AM 560 listeners. Enjoy great food and beverages and be a part of the live broadcast of Black and Right with John Anthony. Tickets are on sale now at 560theanswer.com/cruise. That's 560theanswer.com/cruise.
It's Reveille. About 4 years ago, Tyson Foods packed up its Illinois headquarters and innovation center located in Chicagoland and moved both operations to Arkansas. About 500 employees were affected by that move. Now, 10 days ago, Tyson Foods shut down their meatpacking facility in the small town of Jocelyn, Illinois, and laid off 2,500 employees. The employees are understandably upset, wondering where they will find another job in an area where jobs are scarce. The unions are upset. That's a lot of dues-paying jobs going away. State legislators, both Democrat and Republican, are upset. How do they explain yet another business leaving? But Pritzker's response? Tepid. He says he's in talks with Tyson Foods to repurpose the facility, blames the closure on the high cost of beef, notes that Tyson is closing other facilities in other states, and says we're doing everything that we can to lift the people up in Jocelyn. But he's all hat and no cattle. When 2,500 workers lose their jobs instantly, Illinoisans should be asking Pritzker, where's the beef? Apparently, the beef's in Texas. Tyson Foods just opened a new facility in Amarillo. It can easily add a second shift and process the same amount that Illinois plants used to. Obviously, Tyson is consolidating operations in states more friendly to business. In their 2026 ranking of best places to do business, Chief Executive Magazine wrote, the states focusing on the fundamentals, talent, infrastructure, tax, and regulatory climate are the ones that will continue to do well. In that survey, CEOs ranked Texas number 1 and Illinois number 48. It's only a mystery to Pritzker and the Democrats why 2,500 people are out of a job at a plant that operated for 40 years. They're leaving because it's the smart thing to do. I'm Jeannie Ives. Join me on The Real Story Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. and sign up for my newsletter at breakthrough-ideas.com.
You've worked hard for everything you have, your home, your investments, your real estate. When you're gone, someone has to manage it. Choosing the right trustee or executor is one of the most important decisions you'll make.
We kept putting it off. We figured our oldest would handle everything.
Then we thought, what if something happens to him?
Or what if the kids can't agree? We've seen money tear families apart.
We called Home State Bank, and I wish we'd done it sooner. Home State Bank serves as trustee or executor for families across Northern Illinois, stepping in as the professional, impartial manager of your estate so your family doesn't have to carry that burden. They don't take sides, and they'll carry out your wishes exactly as you intended. Take the first step today by calling 815-459-2000 to meet with a trust officer face-to-face. Again, that's 815-459-2000. Home State Bank. Hometown professionals working together to build a stronger community since 1915.
Hair Volume from New Nordic will make your hair look thick and healthy. Hair Volume is available online at Amazon and NewNordicUSA.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
Team Hochberg Traffic Center time at 7:40. Kennedy inbound jams up Cumberland to Montrose. Ike inbound Manheim to Damon. You'll find delays. I-57 stop and go inbound from 127th into the Ryan merge. Got delays stacking up on the Reagan I-88. The entrance ramp to eastbound 88 from southbound Farnsworth Avenue remains shut down due to a rollover semi and an accident reported in Woodridge, Hobson, and Woodridge Drive. Traffic, a service of Aleve. At some point, body pain will creep in and become your reality for that day. But Aleve is here to keep you moving. One pill, 12 hours of body pain relief. Don't let pain hold you back. Try Aleve today and use as directed. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. A check of your morning forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center finds a partly sunny day ahead and a high of 81.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when you're moving out. I said, when you're moving out.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. That theme music means it's time for our weekly conversation with the wirepoints.org folk. Mark Lennon, founder of wirepoints.org. I mentioned Illinois, which already sports the highest property taxes in the nation. Nice try, New Jersey. Maybe add a few more layers of government if you want to compete with us. And as Cook County Treasurer Maria Pappas reported, the median property tax increase in North and Northwest Cook County this year, about 7%. Well, it's just going up from there, just in case you were wondering. And the gathering storm that we've talked about with respect to Chicago mainly is not limited to Chicago. Chicago Police and Fire pension funds, less than 25% funded, which is, that's basically waiting for a couple bear markets and you're going to have a problem paying out current beneficiaries. But I know nobody will believe it until it occurs, and then it will be a crisis, and everybody will be to blame, and no one will be to blame, and we'll raise taxes, and we'll cut services, and we'll sell everything that isn't nailed down to make sure that the government unions get what was promised them, and the non-government union Illinoisans will be used as spare parts to fund the government unions as they are currently, just as a matter of course. For more on this, let's bring in Mark Lennon, because he has updated the 654 local police and firefighter pension funds. Really interesting read over at wirepoints.org that I would encourage you to check out, get a handle on your hamlet's situation with respect to police and fire pension funds. Mark, thanks for joining us as always.
Hey, Dan. Yeah, there's a old American Indian adage that says if you're not careful where you're going, you just might end up where you're going, and that's what's
Yeah. Well, give us the top line here of police and fire pension funds in the suburban areas, statewide as well as the suburban areas. We obsess about Chicago, but the problem is not as pronounced in most other areas as it is in Chicago, but it's a problem.
Exactly. We have 650 some local pensions. Almost every municipality has their own police and firefighter pension, and the average funded ratios on those is only about 63%. And it's been worsening, although slightly in the last few years. And the dollar amount owed has also been worsening. This is according to two comprehensive studies that look at all 650 pensions and give details on each of them.
Well, 63% funded, that sounds pretty good.
Well, you stumbled over what adjective to use for describing the city pensions, but you can really do that for a 60% funded formula, too. There's no technical term for it, and I stumbled over what to use, too, distressed, awful, horrible, cataclysmic, whatever. It's something. Take your pick, but that's really bad, and it would make actuaries puke. We often have people going around like Ralph Martier saying, well, let's just re-amortize these mortgages and we'll just shoot for an 80% funding target because 80% is adequate. That's a myth. The American Academy of Actuaries has said no, and absent special circumstances, we always have to look at each individual pension to see what's going on. But that's a myth, and these kinds of funding levels that we have are horrible. And the consequence is it's not just debt on the books, but you have to pay more each year just to stay even, to tread water.
I just want to hold there because that's a key point. And you give a good example here. For example, the city of Des Plaines, 21% of the city's general fund goes towards police and fire pensions. It was under 8% less than 2 decades ago.
Yeah, and making that more challenging is the state government, and the state government sets all the rules for these pensions. Don't blame your locals for your local politicians for the rules on these things. But the state decided a few years ago to mandate that all of these pensions have to get up to 90% funding by 2040. Well, that's a mighty big unfunded mandate, and they're doing a pretty good job. In fact, by the way, I didn't mention in the article, on the whole, the communities put in more into their pensions than is statutorily required every year, the made-up formula that the state has in an effort to try to address this. But that requires property taxes or taxes of some kind. It's mostly property taxes. So you wonder what's behind those tax bills you're getting. Look at these local pensions. That's a big part of it.
Well, and by the way, and you mentioned this, this is in good economic times in terms of market returns. S&P stocks over the last 3 years, 22 to 24, were about 29%. That was the return on the S&P. So, yeah, I mean, you can assume, sort of 8% compounded returns annually, but you're not going to get them. So, as I said, a couple of years of bear markets or a run of a bear market that lasts several years, and this situation gets much more dire much more quickly.
Yep, all these numbers, and by the way, all these numbers are the official numbers, which are baloney. We've been running for 10 years, and many people agree with this. One of the key assumptions that makes all the difference in the world is how much you expect to get off of the earnings on the investments that the pensions have. Their assumptions are generally over 7%, which is never allowed in the private sector, and financial types always criticize that. They have been able to hit that in the past few years because we've had these freakishly good years, but that's not going to last.
Well, the other thing too is just thinking it's not just private sector, the private sector, but the private sector unions, like the trades. I mean, you talk to any business manager for the plumbers, electricians, operating engineers. If they were running a pension that was 60% funded for their guys, they would be in prison.
That's right. It's an entirely double standard for public pensions versus private pensions, and they strictly enforce that 100% rule. And of course, they're backed up too by a federal guarantee fund to a large extent. There's no such protection underneath these pensions. It's just the taxpayers that have to cough up when they come up short.
Well, and the other thing here too is you gave some examples. These mid-sized urban centers around the state that are atrophying and have been for some time, the Decaturs and the Rockfords and even the Springfields. I mean, they're already, first of all, they're below median funding levels, it looks like in all cases, and they're devoting an inordinate amount of their general fund just to pension benefits. So if pensions continue to get sweetened by the politicians, if economic times market returns are not as good as they've been recently, you're really going to accelerate that spiral just in terms of the liquidation of people's homes through property taxes, as well as the inability to provide the benefit levels promised.
Yeah, and the city of Springfield has actually devotes its entire property tax collection to pensions. The rest of the city government has to live off of other taxes that they raise, and that's important here too. Don't be tricked by the averages. If the average is 60%, half are underneath that, and 200 pensions are less than 60% funded. 100 have less than 50% of what they're supposed to have on hand to cover those obligations for pensions already earned. That's what we're talking about here. So, again, don't be tricked by the averages. The bottom half of these folks are in, again, pick your own adjective, horrible, catastrophic, bad shape.
And we just had Reason Foundation do a 50-state study, and the state with the worst debt per capita was Illinois. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was just looking at state obligation, as it wasn't looking at these local police and fire pension obligations, correct?
That's right.
So this is another $15 billion in unfunded liabilities at the local level, in addition to the, depending on whose math you believe, 250 billion in unfunded liabilities at the state level.
That's right. They found that just at the state level, the debt to asset ratio is kind of off the charts for Illinois, 270% or something. And that can't be said often enough, Dan, that we're talking about a consolidated crisis that we face here between the state government and the municipal government, because a lot of these obligations are shared. They're always going back and forth about who's going to pay for what, the unfunded mandates. Taxpayers, they get it all goes to the taxpayers, so it's really one pot that we're talking about. And they did not count these local pensions in that number. It's a consolidated mess that we face.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Florida has a ballot initiative to exempt the first $250,000 of the assessed valuation of your home from property taxes. Two states going in opposite directions at a remarkable pace. Chicago in the national news, again, Illinois, because of this Reason Foundation study, but Chicago, too. The Wall Street Journal headline, Chicago dug itself out of a financial hole. Now it's sliding back in, although, no, it didn't dig itself out of a financial hole. When it got lifted out of a junk rating in terms of its credit in 2022, that was only because of the sugar high from the pandemic funny money that was drop shipped to cities like Chicago. It wasn't real. It was never real. And now that's gone, and we're back to where we were prior to that little interregnum.
Excuse me. Yeah, but one notch above junk is
throw a party.
Yeah. And congrats to the Wall Street Journal. They've been on top of this for years. Get dismissed and ignored, of course, by the Pritzker administration. They called the Wall Street Journal, along with us and others, carnival barkers, I guess is their phrase. But it's happening, and the Wall Street Journal's been on top of it.
Joe Ferguson from the Civic Federation. We've been having low-grade earthquakes here, and the question is whether a tsunami is going to hit us. Is that the question?
The low-grade earthquake, in my opinion, happened in about 2002. After the tech bubble crashed, you could see in the numbers where things were pointing, and the alarm bell should have gone off then. Had we acted decisively, then we could have headed this off. And by 10 years later, it had become a crisis that was difficult to see any resolution to. And So he's, thank you, but he's 23 years behind the times.
Yeah, and do you hear anything from anybody, starting with the mayoral candidates, that is commensurate with the financial crisis facing the city in terms of a response, in terms of a framework, a plan?
No, and that's a challenge we've thrown down, all the time. Just show us a back of the envelope kind of calculation on how you get in this mess. Nobody's ever done it. I struggle to find what it would be for Illinois, for Chicago too. It's a question of disaster mitigation and trying to protect the innocents from some of the harm, like school kids and stuff. You do what you can to help people that deserve help as things get worsen. But no, there's no plan on the table from anybody.
Mark Lennon, founder of WirePoints, wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Take care. And he joined us in the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Chicagoland certified financial planning professional Tim Stearns discusses taxes in retirement.
Most people are paying more in taxes and keeping less of their money to live and do what they enjoy. That's why we've put out the Retirement Tax Bill Calculator online. You can see with your own eyes just how much you might be overpaying. It's a valuable tool, $500 value, but we made it free for you to view and run your own numbers at MVPCFP.com. That's MVPCFP.com.
To run your retirement tax bill calculator, go to MVPCFP.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Cornerstone Securities, LLC.
Welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Tim. My friend Tim Stearns, a certified financial planner with TJ Stearns Financial Planning in Arlington Heights. Tim, how are you? Welcome back.
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
So, Tim, let's check in on how you've been helping clients achieve financial security and peace of mind. Perhaps you have a story or two, a success story or two, an example of how you've helped clients recently.
I remember I had a neighbor who, believe it or not, was a longtime listener to your show. And he had come up to me in the yard and said he wanted to stop and smell the roses and kind of get out of his job. He was done taking the train downtown to Chicago every day and basically working 60 hours a week for a company that didn't really care about him or his family. So we started running numbers, and lo and behold, he was able to retire 5 years earlier. He's now 12 years retired. He's a grandpa. He's loving life. He, too, needed a protect and grow blueprint, and he had to make sure he wasn't leaving anything to chance for their future.
Thank you, Tim. If you're in your 50s or 60s, I want you to speak with my friend Tim Stearns, TJ Stearns Financial Planning. Tim will help you structure and optimize your savings to prepare for 20 to 30 years of enjoyable retirement. Call Tim today to schedule your free consultation and get your free Protect and Grow blueprint. Call 1-800-640-2256. Again, that number, 800-640-2256. Tell them I sent you when you call Tim at 800-640-2256.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, we're trying again, and if Willie Wilson doesn't call in at 8:08, I'm resigning from Whitey's for Willie. That's my threat. Candidate for mayor, will the fourth time be the charm? Businessman Willie Wilson joins us to talk about the mayoral race, maybe some conversation about those pension obligations and the city's finances. That is at 8:08. On the bottom of the 8 o'clock hour, we'll talk to DOE spokesman. It is now 8 o'clock in the AM 560.
The hammer, CJ Pop of Fox News. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent laying down the law on Iran. Fox's Trey Yanks in Tel Aviv.
Among the new sanctions includes an expanded list of secondary sanctions targeting digital assets, technology, gold, aviation, and shipping. In addition, the Treasury Department sanctioned nearly 60 entities, individuals, and vessels in multiple jurisdictions. The actions go after what the department describes as a network of shadow fleet vessels operating across many different countries. Iranian officials threatened retaliation to the economic measures. Another tanker was struck in the Strait of Hormuz with an unknown projectile while transiting the U.S.-approved southern route. The vessel had damage caused to its engine room and was disabled.
President Trump pokes the bear, floating the idea of changing the name of Lake Ontario to Lake America, posting on Truth Social since he does not expect to do much business with Ontario any longer. It's part of the trade dispute with Canada, which is expected to reveal its retaliatory tariffs today. Second Lady Usha Vance responding to Michigan Democratic Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed, who suggested Vance's grandfather would have rejected her.
I have to admit, I kind of laughed because, yes, I had never met JD's mama and papa, but I do know and love the children that they raised. You know, his mom, his aunt and uncle. And they have never been anything but incredibly loving. I mean, his aunt is like a second mother to me.
This from a Fox Friends exclusive that airs Wednesday morning. The U.S. Supreme Court hands President Trump a major victory.
It lifts a lower court block that prevented the administration from implementing key parts of Trump's March executive order, which called for the federal government to create lists of voters eligible to receive federal ballots. It requires states to provide information so the Postal Service can verify that voters on those lists are eligible.
That is Fox's Alex Hogan reporting. America's listening to Fox News.
"63 degrees in Chicago." I'm Mike Scott in the QC Kinetics newsroom. A man killed in an armed robbery in Brighton Park early this morning. Chicago police say a suspect or suspects entered a business, demanded money, and brandished handguns. While running from the scene with the cash, a suspect fired shots at a 36-year-old man, hitting him several times. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Governor Mike Braun calling for the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission to investigate NIPSCO as tens of thousands remain without power over the weekend from severe storms nearly 2 weeks ago. Yesterday in Gary, hundreds showed up to an impromptu cookout where relief supplies were handed out.
And it's taking them so long to help us. NIPSCO has not kept their promise.
In NIPSCO's defense, some crews were shot at in Gary as they assessed storm damage and began to restore power. As of this morning, nearly 4,000 residents are in the dark. A high-profile Chicago priest being reinstated after facing sex abuse allegations. Father Michael Flager was reinstated at St. Sabina Church on the south side. An investigation by the Archdiocese of Chicago concluded he was not guilty of the allegation. Chicago sports, Cubs shut out the Diamondbacks 7-0. White Sox crushed by the Rangers at the rate 11-2. The news, a service of Salem Surround, a local digital marketing agency providing high-performing digital solutions to surround your target audience. Go to surroundchicago.com today. Time now for the AM 560 Business Beat, a service of Signature, a division of Esquire Bank.
I'm Maria Bartiromo, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Dick's Sporting Goods is reporting a disappointing quarter. It's lowering its forecast for the year because it sees a challenging market for footwear. The stock is losing ground. Hyundai Motor and its union have reached a deal to end the walkout at South Korean plants. The agreement comes after months of on and off strikes that disrupted production. Members are scheduled to vote on the tentative deal next Monday. It includes a salary increase, annual bonus, and one-time cash payment. Hyundai suggested it discussed plans with the union to deploy humanoid Atlas robots on some assembly lines, likely first in the U.S. in about 2 years, but it didn't elaborate. Crude oil prices have moderated after the new U.S. economic sanctions against Iran were revealed. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Ginny Coselda. Invested in you.
Freedom Summit Chicago returns to the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca on Saturday, October 10th. Headlined by investigative journalist James O'Keefe and former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. They'll be joined by Dan Proft, Sean Thompson, Jeannie Ives, Amy Jacobson, John Anthony, and many more. Tickets are on sale now at freedomsummitchicago.com. That's freedomsummitchicago.com. Sponsored in part by Firago and by Nauman and Associates. Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr., now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
Near the end of the Revolutionary War, George Washington received a letter from one of his own officers. Colonel Louis Nicola suggested that America might be better served by a monarchy, with Washington himself as king. Washington firmly rejected the idea. He had spent years leading Americans in a fight for independence from a monarchy. He would not see that victory end with America creating a king of its own. He understood that the cause of the revolution was greater than any one man. His example reminds us that power can be offered, earned, or taken. But character determines whether we use it for ourselves or remain faithful to something greater.
Labor Day and the American labor movement were built on three fundamental principles: fair wages, reasonable hours, and big savings on Beautyrest at Hassellus Mattress. Or something like that. Now through Labor Day, Hassellus will give you a free adjustable base with the purchase of any Beautyrest mattress, including Beautyrest World Class and the ultra luxury Beautyrest Black. If your current mattress has been laboring under you for the past decade, it deserves a much needed retirement. Visit a Hassellus employee-free showroom and test your favorite mattress without commission-crazed salespeople hovering over you. Employee-free means way low prices. Others sell the Queen Beautyrest Premium World Class Thatcher KA mattress for $2,450, but Hassellus has it for just $1,788, plus a free adjustable base, plus an additional $200 off, plus free next day delivery, plus a $100 rewards cash card. Now through Labor Day at Hassellus Mattress. Find an employee-free showroom near you at hassellus.com.
When it comes to supplements, two things matter most. A, that it works, and that you can trust it. Rather than just tell you about Relief Factor, we'll let our audience do that. We hear from people every single day whose lives have changed, and I want you to hear a few of their stories. Doug took Relief Factor for nearly a year before convincing his wife, a special needs teacher, to try it. She had been using assistance just to move through the long hallways at school. Now she's back on her feet every day and never had to leave the job that she loves. I remember when buttoning my shirt was almost impossible, but Relief Factor changed how I'm able to do it and the simple things again. And they make it really easy now for you to find out if you can be the next person that's telling us about Relief Factor and how it gave you your life back. 3 weeks, $17.76. Try it. ReliefFactor.com, 800-4RELIEF. You'll connect with their friendly local team, and they'll do everything they can to help. We hope you soon will be sharing your story with us as well. ReliefFactor.com.
Take the journey of living a happy, successful, and meaningful life through God. Listen to It's Time with Dan Lights, Sunday mornings at 9 on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
8:09, Team Hochberg traffic center time. Stop and go on the Edens Expressway. It's on the outbound side between the Kennedy Junction and Dempster. Accident on the Ike inbound at Manheim Road. Dan Ryan stop and go locals inbound between 59th and 18th. Bishop Ford stop and go due to an accident. Semi into a car inbound at 103rd. And an accident in the right-hand lane. It's blocking things up northbound right before Buckley Road, Route 137. Traffic is service of the AM 560 mobile app. Download the app. 560theanswer.com/mobile. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of the morning forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today will bring partly sunny skies and pleasant conditions with a high of 80. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 66. Tomorrow, there will be times of clouds and sun with a chance of a thunderstorm in spots from late morning on. It'll be humid with gusty winds potentially accompanying any downpour, and the high will reach 83. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. The great economist Thomas Sowell in 1981 participating in a panel discussion with members of the media, was asked by NBC News' Emery King to address affirmative action. Thomas Sowell, 1981, 45 years ago.
Blacks have made more progress in the last 17 years than at any other time in history, progress that came about largely as a result of the government social programs during that period, among them affirmative action. What do you propose, or would you propose, as substitutes as we see the administration going about the business of...
I would disagree with you entirely on your facts. As I've looked at affirmative action, I do not see blacks or Hispanics rising relative to the general population under affirmative action. I think there are a lot of assertions and foregone conclusions that are stated over and over again, but repetition is not a substitute for facts. The fact is that under affirmative action, Puerto Rican income, for example, has fallen from 60% of the national average to 50% of the national average. Mexican American income has fallen from 76% to 73% of the national average. Black income has fluctuated right about where it was before affirmative action. When you break down the figures further, what you find is that those blacks who have education, who have years of experience on the job, are rising absolutely in relative to whites, but that those who are average and who don't have that level of education, they are falling relative to whites. So they are falling behind from before. I would not date the progress from 17 years ago, the 1964 Civil Rights Act I assume you're talking about. I think we need to go back 10 years before that, and in the preceding decade, blacks in high-level jobs more than doubled. What we're watching is a long-run trend based upon the rising skill level of the black population.
Mr. Eden?
Uh-huh. And nothing's changed in the last 45 years in terms of the impact of these count by race programs, whether it's with respect to admissions or with respect to hiring. So maybe someday we'll stop playing racial politics in Chicago. And maybe it would take somebody like Willie Wilson to lead the charge because he has the credibility on the issue, somebody who lived through Jim Crow and came out the other end, a multi-million-dollar successful businessman. He has the standing that a suburban honky like me doesn't. So maybe he'll deliver that message and separate himself from the crowd in the 2027 mayoral race. Let's ask him. Willie Wilson, humanitarian businessman, candidate for mayor. The website, williewilson2027.com, williewilson2027.com. Willie, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having us on this morning. It's been a while since we talked, you know?
It has. So what do you think about what Thomas Sowell had to say 45 years ago and whether or not we've been stuck in a rut in the 45 years since?
Well, you know, I'm from the Jim Crow days, and even now, I think the struggle today is different than what it was 45 years ago. Because 45 years ago, when I was coming up, we didn't have, in my neighborhood down south, picking cotton, chopping cotton, we didn't have drugs, nothing like that. Alcohol. We worked hard, and we just took in, had to survive. Today, it's a lot different. I think today you have to have these young men and young ladies to have skills. You got to train them in school. You got to put trade in school and start building their foundation. But you can't have the teachers in the school. I would say this much, is the leadership of the teacher union passing kids from 1 grade to 8th grade and can't read and write. You know, those majority of black there. I mean, whether you're black or white, you have to do right by all people. Don't see just one color. We got to have a different mindset in. You know, I made it with 7th grade education, ran away from home, and very successful. Never been in no trouble or nothing like that. And still appreciate all of Chicago, regardless of what your color may be. I'm going to stick with that and stay with it. You got to put trade in school. You got to make sure that pay pass from 1 grade to the 8th grade is that they got a trade. And when you get to 12th grade, you know how to fix things with your hand. You got to put AI. That is going thing coming up, and these kids being left behind more and more and more. And then on top of that, Dan, a lot of the kids recycle back into prison system because after they get out, all right, and so we got to put a stop to that and put trade in the prison system as well. So when they get out, they become productive citizens.
Well, let's talk
stuff about that. You know?
Well, let's talk about one institution at a time here. So, what's your message to Stacey Davis Gates and the Chicago School Board? What does Mayor Willie Wilson mean for them?
Well, I think it means a little bit of trouble because I wouldn't allow them to pass these young men and young ladies out of school, what grade they grade, and don't know how to read and write. You know, I wouldn't allow it. You need to trade back in there. I would say that those young men and young people need a leadership, the right leadership, to care about them, not to just take and talk one talk and do another one. I mean, I understand that she has her kid in private school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's wrong. How can she put her kid in private school and not in the public school, and then go on strike and want more money? I call it a shame. I think all of them should resign, to be honest with you, and let's get new leadership there, you know?
And do you, I mean, in addition to resigning, I mean, it could be just reshuffling the death. I mean, if Jackson Potter takes over, what'll be different? Nothing. So what about providing opportunities for kids whose mom isn't Stacey Davis Gates to have the same opportunity her kid has? Like, for example, doing what Pritzker won't do and pushing to opt in to the $1,700 federal tax credit to fund K through 12 scholarships. You're still a supporter of school choice, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely, 100,000%. You have to have, in my opinion, to get the right break education, school choices. You know, I think this whole thing with the illegal immigrant came in and they putting them into school. I think that just a ploy to take and get more money for the union. You know, the whole thing must stop and will stop. You got to have these private schools. People can make their own choices. You know, that would all go away. And I mean, we have to deal with this situation. Stop taking and produce a product that doesn't work.
So on public safety, let's talk public safety, because that's part of the conversation about schools too. Kids getting to and from school safely, including the ones that have to take CTA. Tell us where you come down. I mean, should the Safety Act be repealed? Should the shot spotter cameras be redeployed? Should we hire more cops? Something else that you want to do that's not included in that list?
I believe that right now you're short about 2,000 police officers. I think supposed to get up to around about 14,000 police officers. Look, if I have the 14,000 police officers, if I need 15,000, then you put 15,000 to make sure that our public is safe and feel confident that they can go out and shop and things of that nature. And the neighborhood is safe so new businesses can come into the community. The shot spotter ordinarily you need them here because my understanding is that somebody fired a shot, for example, that police officer can locate where it came from and respond much quicker there. I would definitely put that back in place. But not only that, I would put the police back into the schools, you know, to protect our precious product and those our kids. You know, we would tell, you know, I always been on this one here. I still believe that you got to have 4 superintendent of police to cover each section of the city. You got 50 aldermen running the city, all right? So give people the confidence that, look, police officers here, those CTAs and the high-rise building there, have those police officers in your citizen building where that people living in there not 55 and up, but they're like 25 young people, drugs and stuff like that. Stop all that, cut all that out, put them downtown to protect our citizens. That was first priority right there.
What about dealing with the repeat offenders that are put on electronic monitoring thanks to the Safety Act, that are turned out time and again because of the decisions of Cook County judges or the failure of Cook County prosecutors or the combination of the two? What do you want to see with the electronic monitoring program? What do you want to see with the Safety Act? What's your assessment of the job that Eileen Burke has done?
I don't know much about Burke. I met her only once, and that was pretty much that. My take on this whole situation is this, though, because every 3 or 4 months, matter of fact, on the 30th this month, I go to Cook County Jail, and I put money on the book for every prisoner in there, you know, to buy toothpaste and et cetera, on the book for them. And when I go and talk to those young men and young ladies, I said, why do you guys take and come back in here, you get out and everything else? Every one of them, most of them say job. No particular reason. Number one, a job. They need job. They need a living wages. They need to be able to make a living, so they have to have that, because once they get out, they don't have no place to go but the job and everything. So that's the problem. Now, I just don't think that we have to go to all this extreme if you put the right situation in place for putting the situation around people's legs and things of that nature. People in prison today been there, Dan, for a year or two and haven't even had a trial. You know, it's just sitting there. So I think this whole thing got to be reformed. You know.
But would you?
People not bad, you know.
I mean, I'm all for, you know, the right to a speedy trial, of course. But but would you say? I mean, just a high-profile example, like the dude who lit that girl on fire on the CTA, who's a 50, 60 time loser, 50, 60 arrests, time and again. I mean, that's somebody that needs to be removed from society permanently, isn't it?
I agree with that. Somebody burn my spouse or my kid, that wouldn't work.
Yeah.
That wouldn't work at all. They don't need nothing around their leg on that. You gotta, be accountable for that. I'm totally with you on that one there. I mean, I think for a little minor crime, like you stealing food because you got 5 kids and you can't take care of them, you don't need to be in jail for 3 or 4 years. You need to help that person get a job and take care of their family. But yes, the crime like that, somebody shoot and kill someone, then they need to be held accountable, and they will be held accountable.
Are you still a proponent of reparations too? I know Brandon Johnson's talked about it. He's got a commission on it, but he hasn't done anything about it. Is that something that you want to do? You want to pursue?
Well, let me explain first before I answer that right way. My analysis of reparation this year is that, look, I'm not talking about if I got to give a person $10 million for what happened back over 100 years ago, et cetera, et cetera. Reparation means giving the opportunity for me is that people need to be able to get education. People need to be able to have jobs. Reparation means to me is giving those situations that's in place just like they did in Japan. Just like you take the president now, Trump want to get young people up in Washington, D.C., that's called reparation there, okay? But
so are you talking about cash payments to people? Or are you talking about just the opportunities to go to better schools and to have job training and those sorts of social services?
I'm talking about job training, things of that nature. We have enough social situation going on now. If you give a person that don't know how to manage money, you're going to finish within the next day, okay? Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about that. This is my analysis of reparation here. I get you call it also like your tax dollars. I pay a lot of taxes, all right? Young people and young ladies pay a lot of taxes. Those tax dollars should get back to their neighborhood to improve people's lives, But, they don't have the trade or skill, so we have to put that in place and work those out to make sure it happens. I understand, Dan, business And if you don't have business, everything goes down. If you ain't got into a certain community, your taxes goes up and run people out.
What do you think of the rise of these Democrat socialists in the Democrat Party, to which I guess you still affiliate? I don't know.
No, I've always been pretty much independent for a long time.
Okay.
I'm independent right now, but let me put it this way too: there's good Democrat, there's bad Democrat, there's good Republican and bad Republican. I talk with all of them. I go out with all of them. Young man running for governor now. He was out with my food giveaway and gas giveaway this past weekend. You know. So I look at a person, not the party, because we keep looking at the party. The party says one thing. If they're wrong, then you go with the party. But no, you got to go with the people, and you got to communicate with it. The social stuff going on today, that ain't helping nobody.
Okay, so no to socialism. That's good. What? Why is this the fourth time going to be the charm for you running for mayor?
The fourth time, what different?
Yeah, what's going to be different this time?
Well, first of all, it is that what's different is that the business aspect of it that we need to put in place now. The city right now trying real estate taxes, everything going up higher and higher and higher. Okay,
yeah.
I know how to fix it.
Well, that was, but that was, I mean, just sorry to interrupt, but that was the same situation 4 years ago when you ran, and obviously you didn't win. So, I mean, why is it going to be different this time with the same? You may be the only one who will pursue policies that could fix it, but you got to get across the finish line. So, how do you do that in this field against, Giannoulias's money and John Kelly's money and Susana Mendoza and her support?
I think this here, I'm out into all community more today than what I have been in the past. But let me put it this way. If I was a citizen of Chicago, I would ask myself the biggest question they got to face. Do I want to go with somebody who running for office with two jobs? You know, and okay. The other thing I've asked myself, too, is this here. Do I want to have a person at mayor is answering to the special interest group before you answer to the citizen itself? You know, I don't have to answer to special interest group. I use my own money, but these other people are already sold out. Chicago don't need that, and they don't need to go through that another 4 years from now. Probably I would not have ran this time because of the fact I want to just not do anything in terms of that avenue, but because of all these guys that are running, I don't think that is right. Because I think they'll destroy Chicago further and further and further. Too many business left, too many people. They're not pro-business. You know, they're anti-business. And then if not there, they bought already and sold and paid for. I'm not. And I understand this thing. So look, Chicago got to make that decision. And I'm going to give them an opportunity to make that decision to elect me this time for mayor at no cost.
All right. Okay. I mean, that definitely is a separator. Willie Wilson, humanitarian businessman, candidate for mayor of Chicago again. WillieWilson2027.com is the website. WillieWilson2027.com. Willie, good to speak with you again. Appreciate it.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. And Willie joined us on the AlphaWealthGroup.com answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
You've worked hard for everything you have. Your home, your investments, your real estate. When you're gone, someone has to manage it. Choosing the right trustee or executor is one of the most important decisions you'll make.
We kept putting it off. We figured our oldest would handle everything.
Then we thought, what if something happens to him?
Or what if the kids can't agree? We've seen money tear families apart.
We called Home State Bank, and I wish we'd done it sooner. Home State Bank serves as trustee or executor for families across Northern Illinois, stepping in as the professional, impartial manager of your estate so your family doesn't have to carry that burden. They don't take sides, and they'll carry out your wishes exactly as you intended. Take the first step today by calling 815-459-2000 to meet with a trust officer face-to-face. Again, that's 815-459-2000. Home State Bank. Hometown professionals working together to build a stronger community since 1915.
Have you seen videos of Russian floating folk dancers?
Floating Russian huziwatsits?
They wear long dresses so you can't see their feet, so it looks like they're gliding on air.
I've seen those videos. Impressive.
That reminds me of the dining chairs with the Brody table.
The Brody table is my favorite table at Penny Mustard.
You know, the unique design kind of resembles one of those Russian dancers.
You're right.
And check out these upholstered caster dining chairs.
I don't see any casters.
Precisely. It looks like the chairs gliding in air. Here, I'll show you. I can glide over here.
Ooh, nice.
And I can glide over there.
Be careful.
And I can...
Watch out!
I never was a very good dancer.
The Brody table, paired with 4 caster dining chairs, starting at $64.22 at Penny Mustard.
Now open in Algonquin.
PennyMustard.com.
Better versions of what people want.
Penny Mustard Furnishing.
The TV tide is turning, and millions of Americans are tuning to Salem News Channel. For breaking news, common sense analysis, and the conservative voices leading the conversation, SNC delivers the stories that matter most. Watch Scott Jennings, Larry Elder, Mike Gallagher, and many others tackling the issues facing our nation. Stream free on Pluto TV, Samsung TV, the Roku channel, and more. Salem News Channel. The news you want, the perspective you trust.
AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up at 8:38, we'll talk to Julie Hartman, Chief Spokesman for the U.S. Department of Education. Lots to talk about as it relates to the federal, state, local relationships in education and how the money's flowing given the restructuring of the Department of Education under this president. We'll get those details with Julie Hartman at 8:38. Now we check the headlines with Scott.
8:32, 64 degrees in the QC Kinetics newsroom. A man killed in an armed robbery in the Brighton Park neighborhood early this morning around 3 a.m. Chicago police say suspects entered a business with handguns, demanding money from the register. While running away from that scene with the cash, a suspect fired shots at a 36-year-old man, hitting him several times. Police say the man was pronounced dead at the scene in the 3400 block of South California. Governor Mike Braun is calling for the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission to investigate NIPSCO as tens of thousands remained without power in northwest Indiana over the weekend. Governor Braun wants the IURC to review whether NIPSCO's preparedness and whether the utility company maintained its lines properly. He also wants the commission to look into whether the state and which provided funding for infrastructure improvements had that money spent as promised. Yesterday in Gary, hundreds showed up to a cookout where relief supplies were handed out to those still in the dark.
We thought we were forgotten about, and it's taken them so long to help us. NIPSCO have not kept their promise.
As of this morning, nearly 4,000 residents are still in the dark. The White House is outlining what it calls an economic D-Day against Iran.
We are launching an economic onslaught against Iran's financial connections around the globe.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the economic outcast operation will cut off Iran from exporting oil and from other trade. We're watching today as 3 other states hold primary elections, including South Carolina, which has a runoff for Senate between Republican Senator Darlene Graham and Congressman Ralph Norman. High-profile Chicago priest is being reinstated after facing sexual abuse allegations. Father Michael Flager was reinstated at St. Sabina after the Archdiocese investigated and then concluded he was not guilty of the allegation. Chicago's Cortlandt Street Bridge will remain shut down for several years as the Chicago Department of Transportation tries to rehabilitate the aging structure which carries Cortlandt over the Chicago River between Lincoln Park and Bucktown. It's outrageous, according to Alderman Brian Hopkins.
We don't even have a date for beginning the major construction work, let alone a completion date. It's totally up in the air and indeterminate.
The bridge was closed to vehicular traffic last September, and authorities are investigating after a suspicious device was found on campus at the University of Illinois. University police say officers responded to Temple Hoyne Hall after an employee reported finding what appeared to be a grenade on their desk. The building was evacuated. The device was determined to be a non-explosive replica. Cubs shut down the Diamondbacks 7-0. Rangers over the White Sox 11-2. The news, a service of the podcast of Chicago's Morning Answer and the Sean Thompson Show. Hear both limited commercials when you subscribe free. 560theanswer.com/podcast. A check of traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Hugh Hewitt isn't sure we should believe the polls.
Wisconsin, where Francesca Hong blew what the pollsters said was a 20-plus point lead a week ago and lost to David Crowley. How did the polls get it that wrong? It's broken. Polling is absolutely broken. The question is going to be, why are we going to use it anymore? Why is anyone reporting on what polling is?
The Hugh Hewitt Show. Afternoons at 2, right before Alex Marlowe at 3 on AM 560. The Answer.
Are you turning 65 and thinking about Medicare? Or are you over 65 and haven't enrolled yet because you still have coverage at work? Either way, Medicare done correctly will be the best health insurance you will ever have. Imagine having an annual deductible of only $283. There are only two good things about aging, wisdom and Medicare. But to navigate the Medicare maze properly, you need a mentor. Best part? My guidance costs you nothing. Call me. I can help.
If you're tired of calling a bureaucrat at an 800 number to help you navigate Medicare, then you need a local expert on your side. Your own health insurance mentor. C. Stephen Tucker from healthinsurancementors.com is someone I know and trust. He's a 30-year licensed broker who's been educating our listeners for more than a decade. Steve, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Thanks, Dan. They can visit healthinsurancementors.com or call me directly at 630-674-1551. That's 630-674-1551.
The TV tide is turning, and millions of Americans are tuning to Salem News Channel. For breaking news, common sense analysis, and the conservative voices leading the conversation, SNC delivers the stories that matter most. Watch Scott Jennings, Larry Elder, Mike Gallagher, and many others tackling the issues facing our nation. Stream free on Pluto TV, Samsung TV, the Roku channel, and more. Salem News Channel. The news you want, the perspective you trust.
This is attorney Robert Nauman of Nauman & Associates. Thank you, 560 listeners, for your continual phone calls to request our service in your estate planning matters. To share an example, a couple met with our team about an adult child that will need assistance after they both pass away. We created a trust with provisions that will protect that adult child and the rest of the family for years after they're gone. Give us a call when you're facing special circumstances with adult children. We'd love to help you protect your estate and your family. NALawgroup.com or 847-593-8777.
Hi, it's Amy Jacobson, and last year I hired Level 10 Coatings to give my garage floor a total makeover, and I am loving it. It still looks great, shiny, and clean. Level 10 Coatings. Now, you've got to call these guys if your garage floor is cracked, stained, still covered in salt. Don't live like that. Get it done now so you can enjoy it this summer. Level 10 Coatings. They're fast, reliable, and highly professional. Guess what? I went to work. When I came home, it was done. A shiny new gleaming garage floor. A quick, easy fix. And it's guaranteed never to chip or peel. Why? It's not an epoxy job. It's better. Level 10 uses polyurea, which is much better than epoxy. So schedule your free quote today and mention me, Amy, to receive $500 off. Visit level10coatings.com. That's level, the number 10, coatings.com. Or call 855-510-2628. Staff are local and ready to answer questions. Level 10 Coatings, your premier concrete coating experts.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering 24/7 security solutions for homes and businesses. Call them today at 708-889-5600.
It's 8:40, Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Kennedy inbound at Division, report of an accident. Delays on the Eisenhower coming inbound because of an accident. It's right at Mannheim this morning, being swept out of your way. Delays on Lakeshore Drive this morning, northbound Stevenson to Monroe. Stop and go on the Adams I-90 between Toohey and the Tri-State. And delays on Route 53, that massive roadwork zone northbound between the Ike and Euclid, southbound between Palatine Road and Algonquin Road. Traffic, a service of Mattress Firm. Still sleeping on that old bed? Mattress Firm sleep experts can help you choose the perfect upgrade. They'll guide you every step of the way, answering your questions. Shop today, save big. They make sleep easy. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of the morning forecast in the Air Ride Heating and Cooling Weather Center. Partly sunny and pleasant, a high of 81.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Yo, yo, yo. Freedom Summit Chicago returns on Saturday, October 10th, the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Tickets are now on sale. This year, Freedom Summit will be headlined by investigative journalist James O'Keefe and former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. A full day of keynote speeches, book signings, breakout sessions, and much more. I'll be there along with Sean, Jeannie Ives, Amy J., John Anthony, and many others. If you haven't been to Freedom Summit, then make sure to join us this year. And if you're a Freedom Summit vet, we'd love to have you join us again. The event sells out every year, so don't wait to get your tickets. To do that, go to freedomsummitchicago.com. That's freedomsummitchicago.com. We have tickets available at several different price points to fit your budget. So get your tickets and make plans to join us at Freedom Summit Chicago 2026, October 10th at the Westin in Itasca. Again, freedomsummitchicago.com. All right, Department of Education. It's one of those things that's long been on the hit list for Republican presidents going back to Reagan, but nobody's moved to transform it the way that the Trump administration has. And I think it's good to do a stop, look, and listen to see where we stand there. I've got lots of questions. So let's get some answers. Julie Hartman is the chief spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Education, and she joins us now. Julie, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Dan, thanks so much for having me.
So let's, in the initial months of the Trump administration, sort of the heady days of DOGE, there was talk under the direction of Linda McMahon of a reduction in headcount, like at other agencies, and starting to ferret out the waste, fraud, and abuse, and starting to sort of realign and redistribute some of how the money flows and who is in charge of making spending decisions at the Department of Education, as well as beneficiaries down the line at the state and local level. So can you just sort of give us an overview of what was inherited and what the Department of Education looks like today?
Absolutely. Well, I think it's really important, for your listeners to understand why Secretary McMahon and President Trump want to sunset this department and return education to the states. Dan, we've spent $3 trillion on this federal education bureaucracy in D.C., and what do we have to show for it? We have 3 in 10 of our nation's students, only 3 in 10 that are proficient in reading and math. And, if you think about the future of our country, our children are the future. And if we expect to keep up economically, to maintain our national security, even preserve our freedom, we cannot fall down on this most basic responsibility to educate our children. And so really that's why Secretary McMahon is returning education to the states. And what this means is moving key decisions out of the hands of bureaucrats here in D.C., because really, what do bureaucrats know about the individual needs and the individual talents, too, of our children across the country? It's about moving those decisions into the hands of the people who are closest to the children, and that's state leaders, local leaders, and crucially, parents. Who knows a child better than their own parents? And so really over the past year and a half, there's been momentous progress toward achieving that. And I'll just give you a few examples here that state and local leaders and parents can expect this school year. One of them is that now a record number of 25 states are exercising what's called EdFlex authority, and Illinois is actually one of those states. And what this allows state leaders to do is actually free local school districts from mountains of red tape and paperwork that really do pull them away from focusing on what they're supposed to be focusing on, which is the students there in their district. Another great thing that's happening is you were talking about the education dollars. You know, under the previous administration, there were billions of dollars in federal funding that were going toward radical and discriminatory DEI programs, which, by the way, had no measurable connection to student success. And Secretary McMahon has redirected those dollars toward things like evidence-based literacy. That's instruction rooted in the science of reading, which has produced fantastic gains in literacy across the country. So really, it's just about restoring common sense in American education, because if we do not initiate this hard reset, Dan, again, we cannot keep up the way that we've been going and continue to fail our students.
Some of the concern, I know initially when there was some restructuring going on and moving around money and devolving the dollars to the state and local level, as you were describing, was for example, IDEA monies. Are those being cut by the Trump administration? And I remember having to talk through with some families who have a kid with learning disabilities, and it has an IEP, and they were worried about federal support at the local level for executing the IEP at the local level. And you know, as I understood it at the time, it was just moving some of those dollars to sort of a different funnel. But can you describe some of that? You know, some of the, I'm sure you heard those same concerns, and what the department has done to ensure that, for example, students with disabilities get everything that they're entitled to under the law.
Absolutely, Dan. I am so glad that you brought this up, because this is a huge misconception. IDEA, which is, as you said, a federal law guaranteeing protections in education for individuals with disabilities, that predates the Department of Education. And those federal protections will continue to exist long after. And, you know, Secretary McMahon has said that as she scales back federal micromanagement in the many ways that it hurts student success, she is equally committed to strengthening federal oversight in the areas where it remains essential. And that is certainly the case for these federal protections for individuals with disabilities. And I'll tell you, you know, again, you were talking about funding. For this year's fiscal year 2027 budget request, the Trump administration actually included a request to Congress for a record increase in funding for IDEA programs. This is more than $500 million over the previous year's appropriation. Another thing that happened this year is that Secretary McMahon announced a $144 million boost for IDEA programs, and that money already went out the door to states on July 1st. So that critical money is still absolutely flowing to states. In fact, more of it is flowing to states. And again, these federal protections are enshrined in law, and nothing is going to change that. Secretary McMahon has met with hundreds of parents of individuals with disabilities and educators, and she is committed to them that these federal protections will remain in place, and indeed they are.
The school choice program, the tax credit, is part of the BBB. 30 states have opted in, and including states that have Dem governors like Colorado, North Carolina, Kentucky, and Kansas, not Illinois, of course. But progress and prognosis on how that will reshape the education landscape?
Oh, this is so exciting, this education freedom tax credit. As you said, 30 states, both red and blue, have raced into this program. And what it is actually the largest national expansion of education freedom in our nation's history. And what it allows parents to do is access critical funds. This could look like them sending their kid to a private school, but what's great about it too is it could also look like getting extra support in an existing public school. So if a child needs a tutoring program, or if they need after-school programs, or if a student with a disability needs some extra support, this education freedom tax credit allows them to obtain those critical services. And you were talking about, you know, all the states that have opted in. There are still some governors, including Governor Pritzker in Illinois, who has expressed hesitation about this. And, it really is a no-brainer, because this education freedom tax credit, it doesn't take a single dollar from public schools. It puts additional funding into the education system, and it puts the power back in parents' hands to direct the education and choose the interventions for their child's needs.
Yeah.
And so really, this is not a left versus right issue, Dan, and that's why we have seen Democrat governors opt in. This is about unleashing every opportunity possible for our children.
Well, that's what Jared Polis, the governor of Colorado, said, is like, it's free money. Why wouldn't I take it?
Exactly.
A question somebody should ask J.B. Pritzker, but we know why he wouldn't take it, because he's a teachers union toady, and that's a problem. But higher education. I know that the administration is very aggressive with universities that were fomenting anti-Semitism on campus, and that's great. But we still have this sort of starve the beast conundrum. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Last year, the federal government provided $581 million in federal funding to Oregon State University. That's a campus where all undergraduate students have to complete 2 difference, power, and oppression courses as part of its curriculum, which are all sort of neo-Marxist DEI type courses, or as somebody has described them, Antifa 101. What can be done through the Department of Education to to deal with a state of higher education and as intolerant and anti-intellectual as so many of these universities are, and they're still getting subsidized through federal student loan programs and through federal funding, like the Oregon State example, just to make it concrete. Is there anything on the docket to address this?
Well, certainly. In fact, just about a week or two ago, Secretary McMahon issued a letter, which all of your listeners should read, to university leaders and governing boards. It's a call to action letter. And it's really encouraging them to recommit to the fundamental principles of higher education. And that is, allowing the free exchange of ideas. It's through the clash and debate in classrooms that really the truth emerges.
But I'm sorry to interrupt, but I mean,
no, go ahead.
They can be encouraged, but I suspect most of them will need to be rhetorically beaten about the head and neck area, and that means removing funding or providing something. I mean, the only thing that they really respond to, it seems to me, is funding or the lack thereof.
Well, I would point you to the 7 university deals that were achieved here under the Trump administration with Columbia, for example, the University of Pennsylvania, which agreed to not only restore to women the titles that were misappropriated by males competing in their sports, but they actually apologized to those women for allowing sex discrimination under Title IX. Columbia agreed to protect Jewish students, and there are these other great university deals with Brown and Cornell about getting rid of radical and discriminatory DEI programs and restoring merit. So there's been a huge, culture change in higher education because of the Trump administration shining a spotlight on these issues. And certainly where there are civil rights violations, the Trump administration will always hold schools accountable to ensure that they do not discriminate against students. But really also on these campuses, university leaders have to recommit to changing their own culture and cleaning up their own campuses. And that's really what this call to action letter is calling upon them to do. And already there's been amazing response. The Florida university system has responded to Secretary McMahon recommitting to those principles. So there's a lot of change that's happened and a lot of really good culture change that's already underway.
So at the end of the term, what is the Department of Education going to look like in terms of its head count, footprint? What does the end of this transformation at the end of the Trump term look like?
Well, I can tell you that, the American people reelected President Trump with a mandate to sunset this Department of Education and return authority to state and local leaders. And Secretary McMahon is committed, to seeing that through. And really, again, it's just about restoring common sense in education and breaking up the bureaucracy, making sure that education dollars are going back to the basics, and doing everything possible to empower people closest to the child, especially parents, to direct their child's education. So there's going to be a lot more progress to that end over the next 2 years.
So at the end of the day, it turns into, I mean, I know you can't just eliminate the agency without congressional authorization, but it turns into essentially a grant-making agency, and so it should have much smaller headcount and a much smaller administrative budget as compared to the money that's being sent for the states and the locals, the people closest to the people, to administer.
Well, again, as you said, the Department of Education is a pass-through entity, and as we talked about, in this segment, the critical protections at the federal level are going to remain in place. The critical dollars are still going to flow to states to help students. But, again, it's just about breaking up this education bureaucracy in D.C., and we've partnered with other agencies to do that. I'll give you a quick example. We've partnered with the Department of Labor to streamline career and technical education and align CTE with the nation's workforce strategy. There's a partnership, too, with Treasury to restore responsibility and sanity to the federal student loan portfolio. So, there's a lot of great stuff happening, and that's really going to continue as we work to carry out this final mission.
Julie Hartman, Chief Spokesman, U.S. Department of Education. Julie, thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Dan.
And Julie joined us in the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Chicagoland certified financial planning professional Tim Stearns discusses taxes in retirement.
Most people are paying more in taxes and keeping less of their money to live and do what they enjoy. That's why we've put out the Retirement Tax Bill Calculator online. You can see with your own eyes just how much you might be overpaying. It's a valuable tool, $500 value, but we made it free for you to view and run your own numbers at MVPCFP.com. That's MVPCFP.com.
To run your retirement tax bill calculator, go to MVPCFP.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Cornerstone Securities, LLC.
Welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Tim. My friend Tim Stearns, a certified financial planner with TJ Stearns Financial Planning in Arlington Heights. Tim, how are you? Welcome back.
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Tim, for more than 25 years, you've been helping clients achieve financial security and peace of mind, which has to be rewarding. Doing it a long time. You've got a lot of success stories on a daily basis, I'm sure. Can you give our listeners an example of a family that you've helped out recently that comes to mind?
We had a 65-year-old call who had been listening to your show, and he called us and he said, he wanted to know, do I have enough assets? I'm really tired of working. I'm burnt out, etc. And he didn't know if he had the resources, and he didn't have the knowledge to get to the answer of that. So we helped him prepare a Protect and Grow blueprint. And by doing that, we helped position his money for income and cut back on the risks that they had in their current portfolio.
Thank you, Tim. If you're in your 50s or 60s, I want you to speak with my friend Tim Stearns, TJ Stearns Financial Planning. Tim will help you structure and optimize your savings to prepare for 20 to 30 years of enjoyable retirement. Call Tim today to schedule your free consultation and get your free Protect and Grow blueprint. Call 1-800-640-2256. Again, that number, 800-640-2256. Tell him I sent you when you call Tim at 800-640-2256.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, tomorrow we'll have to get to the Girl Scouts as well as Socialist Summer School in Idaho. Yeah, we got a lot there. And in our continuing series of interviewing Chicago mayoral candidates that will desire to make an appeal to center-right voters, George Cardenas will join us tomorrow. So look forward to that, continuing that conversation. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Chicago's Morning Answer. Back with more wit and wisdom on Wednesday. It's now 9 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
Lake America. I'm Therese Crowley, Fox News. Canada preparing to unveil new retaliatory tariffs against the U.S. after failing to take the U.S. deal. It's Canada's response